The disappearance in the forest. The asphalt lot ended in a line of dirt and pine needles, and the trees seemed to breathe out when we crossed it. The hum of the road flattened behind us. Even our voices went smaller, as if the trees absorbed sound, the way moss drinks light. My pack straps creaked when I rolled my shoulders and settled the weight. Maya walked beside me with her sketchbook sealed in a dry bag inside her pack. She still held one hand against it, like a habit she couldn't break. Liam and Sarah drifted ahead, with their fingers laced, swinging between them like they were strolling a boardwalk, instead of climbing into shadow. Ethan hung back with Rachel, who tested every route before trusting it with her boot. Ethan lifted his phone and waved it like a talisman. The screen showed a flat desert of no bars. "Beautiful," he said. "We've entered the land where nothing can embarrass me online." Sarah bumped Liam with her hip. "We might survive this vacation after all." Rachel looked at me with a polite smile that never made it to her eyes. First trip with us. New weight in the group. Careful steps and careful jokes. The trail narrowed fast, cut into the hillside like a ribbon. The canopy stitched itself overhead, branches weaving until the sky slid into strips. Ferns brushed my knees. Somewhere ahead, a slow drip kept time. I waited for birds. No chatter, no trills, just the metronome of water and the small sounds our boots made in damp soil. Maya spoke without looking at me. "Do you feel that?" "What?" "Like the trees are listening." Ethan made a low horror chord with his mouth. "I, for one, welcome our conifer overlords." Liam glanced back with his easy grin. "Give them marshmallows and they'll be chill." Sarah squeezed his hand. It fit him so well it felt inevitable. We passed a birch scarred at hand height. Not initials, not a heart. 3 clean cuts that almost made a triangle, lines just shy of meeting. Sap beaded on the edges, bright and wet. Rachel brushed the bark with a knuckle. Fresh. Maya stared like it was a word she almost knew. "I don't like that shape." Ethan ran his fingertip over a groove and hissed when resin threaded to his skin. "Local minimalist art. I'm moved. I'm also sticky." Another birch wore the same mark a few steps later, then a third deeper in. The pattern repeated just enough to feel intentional, varied just enough to slide away when you tried to define it. I told myself hikers leave all kinds of oddities behind. My stomach didn't buy it. We kept climbing. The air thinned into a cool that never quite reached our skin. When I glanced up, the sky had become a pale smear, caught between ribs of branch. We left the lot at noon. It didn't feel like noon anymore. It felt like a late hour that didn't admit to the clock. Liam pointed his trekking pole toward where he swore the lake lay beyond the ridgeline. "Cliff jump tomorrow. 10 out of 10. I checked forums." Sarah gave him a look that promised fake outrage, followed by laughter. "You checked forums once 3 years ago. Research is timeless. Like your bad ideas." Ethan shook a small bag. "Trail mix offers a counterpoint." Rachel lifted her brows. "What kind of counterpoint?" "The crunchy kind." Maya was quiet. Her eyes kept catching on spaces between trunks, like she was waiting to catch a shape in the act of moving. When our shoulders brushed, she flinched, then forced a smile that never raised the corners of her mouth. The trail swung around a wet boulder. My boot slid. I caught a root and steadied. A pine cone dropped from above and landed where my foot had been about to go. Not a fall, a placement. I looked up. The branches were still and heavy, as if they had finished a conversation just before I listened. Rachel's voice came from behind me. You okay? Fine. You almost made the trip shorter by one person, Ethan said. Please don't. We reached a shelf cut into the mountain and paused for the view that should have been there. The trees stood shoulder to shoulder, denying any valley beyond. The drip stopped. The stillness that replaced it felt lined, like a pocket turned inside out. I called a water break. We leaned against trunks and let the bark print damp against our shirts. Liam unwrapped a bar and announced it tasted like steak. Sarah unwrapped the same and swore hers tasted like cake. Ethan spun his bag of mix and called it a roulette wheel. Maya didn't eat. She closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them, she looked at me like I should recognize the thought already forming. We shouldn't set up too deep. We're not at the lake yet. I know. We have hours. Do we? Ethan tilted his head back. Ah, yes. The woods where time is a suggestion. Rachel glanced at the canopy. It does feel later than it is. No one checked a watch. It would feel rude to show numbers to a place like this. We shouldered packs again. The straps bit a little harder, as if the weight had learned our names and wanted to stay. The carvings kept appearing, sometimes low, sometimes high. Always that almost triangle, stretched thin or drawn tight, as if someone were testing how far the shape could go before it became something else. Every time I considered stepping off the trail to inspect one carved deep in, my body went cold in a way that felt older than thought. I stayed on the path. We all did. We crossed a trickle where water stitched between stones. The sound matched my steps by accident and then deliberately slipped out of sync, like someone walking behind me and trying to align with me on purpose. I stopped. The water found a new beat. I moved again. It adapted. I told myself I was projecting and kept going. Liam produced a small mesh bag with the pride of a magician. Marshmallows, proof of civilization. Sarah lifted her chin. There will be justice if they're burnt. Law and Order Marshmallow Unit. Maya's mouth twitched. The forest felt close enough to hear it. We found the clearing by accident. A narrow split in the brush opened to a flat pocket of ground, ringed with pines. A stone fire ring sat in the middle, black with old burn. The place smelled like smoke buried under damp. No fresh footprints. Old impressions, softened by time. The kind of spot that asks you to stay without saying it. This works, I said. Near enough to water, sheltered from the wind. Ethan stepped into the circle of stones and spread his arms. I claim this site in the name of people who overpack snacks. Rachel touched his elbow with a small smile. You underpacked a tent footprint. We do not speak of the footprint. Sarah traced the edge of the clearing with careful toes. Liam shadowed her, their orbit practiced and easy. Maya stood near the opening and lifted her gaze, testing the height of the green ceiling, like she was checking if she could breathe under it. I dropped my pack. The relief hit and didn't. Lighter body, heavier air, armor off. We set to work. Stakes slid into soil with satisfying resistance. Poles clicked home. Ethan made a mess of guy lines, cursed them like they were treachery, and accepted Rachel's help, without her having to ask. She moved with the quiet speed of someone used to sorting other people's knots. Maya chose a spot close to my tent and smoothed her ground cloth with flattened palms. Her fingers paused over a darker patch of earth. She pressed. The soil gave more than it should. Alex. I crouched beside her. The ground there looked disturbed, not freshly dug, not muddy. Soft in a way that suggested weight had been there, kneeling or set down. too rounded for footprints, bowls, buckets, knees. Ethan walked by with a steak between his teeth. You two are kneeling at the fairy altar. This is fine. Maya didn't rise. We could move. It's a good spot, I said. We keep the fire going. We keep eyes up. We make noise. Noise, she repeated, like it might not work here. Liam went for kindling with mission energy. Sarah gathered dry needles, precise and calm. Rachel laid the fire with tidy angles, that same neat geometry as her knots. Ethan returned with a branch longer than his arm and a grin that tried to be bigger than the place would allow. He lifted the branch like a champion, raising a sword. Behold, fuel. Behold, Rachel echoed, softer. The tinder took on the first strike like it had been waiting. Flame licked, built, settled into a crackle that made our bodies lean in without permission. Heat rolled out and vanished a foot from our shins, as if the cold wore a second skin. Ground rules, I said. If you leave the clearing, tell someone. Water trips in pairs. No solo bathroom runs after dark. If you hear anything weird, you don't go play hero. You wake everyone. Liam saluted with the stick he had already carved to a marshmallow point. Aye, aye. Sarah touched his wrist. No wandering. Maya nodded without looking away from the tree line. Rachel's gaze flicked between us and the dark, as if measuring both. Ethan opened his mouth for a punchline and closed it. The firelight lay on his face and made him look younger. We ate early, because it already felt late. Light dulled without changing color. The fire painted a circle around us, and another darker circle beyond that. The shadows past the second circle didn't ripple like wind shadows. They had a slower pulse, a kind of breathing. Maya unfolded her sketchbook and drew quick shapes, lines that didn't aim for detail. Her pencil moved with a speed that looked like she was trying to pin something down before it shifted. She frowned at the page and glanced up again. Whatever she wanted to catch wasn't holding still. Draw my good side, Ethan said. You haven't offered one. Cruel. Rachel's laugh warmed for a heartbeat. The fire turned the red in her hair bright as wire. Sarah leaned her head on Liam's shoulder. We should swim first thing. Jump off the cliff and regret nothing. You promise. I promise. I took the map out even though I knew the route. The paper lines were steady and honest in my hands. The lake was a blue coin. The trail looped like a thread. The edges of the sheet stirred in a breeze that didn't touch my face. Rachel watched the trees. Do you hear that? We all paused. The fire popped. A pine needle whispered into ash. The woods pressed a finger to our lips. Far off, something knocked. 3 slow taps, evenly spaced, like knuckles on a door. The sound stopped. The quiet after weighed more than the sound did. Liam tilted his head. Woodpecker. Too slow, Maya said. Trees settling, Ethan offered, but he didn't smile. The knocks didn't return. The silence that replaced them felt chosen. I tossed another log on the fire. Sparks lifted and died just short of the branches, as if the dark drank them. We gathered more wood before it got darker. Pairs. I went with Maya. Ethan and Rachel moved along the opposite edge. Liam and Sarah stayed to tend the flame and lay out what we'd want within easy reach, when night made searching feel like a dare. The line between firelight and trees was an edge I felt with my ankles. The temperature dropped at that step like walking into a basement. The smell changed too, from smoke and sugar to wet leaves, and something I didn't have a word for. We didn't go far. We grabbed what lay within arm's reach and came back quick the first 2 trips. On the third, Maya stopped at the boundary and stared into the dark. I followed her gaze. For a breath, I saw a pale oval between trunks, like the inside of a wrist, turned toward us. It was gone when I blinked. The afterimage lingered in my head, like a thumbprint pressed too hard. She didn't ask me if I saw anything. I didn't ask her if she did. We stepped back into the light. Relief should have met us and didn't. It hovered a second out of reach, withheld. Ethan and Rachel returned with a haul. Rachel's cheeks glowed from effort. Ethan pretended to stumble, then dropped the branches with theatrical precision and a quiet glance at the trees that gave away more than the act. He opened his mouth. "Nothing to report," he said, "except that leaves continue to be leaves." "Breaking news," Rachel said. The light thinned to a gray that had no direction. We sat close to the fire and let small talk pretend to be normal. Plans for coffee, the hike to the lake, the temperature of the water, the way you make a shape of tomorrow and set it down between you like a gift everyone can look at when they need proof the night is just a night. A brief tower of sparks lifted and went dark. In the moment after, I caught movement at the edge of the clearing. Not a branch, not wind. Something like a shoulder, briefly turned. A face, pale in a place with no moon. I almost stood. Maya shifted, a breath in, a breath held, and then the air slid back into its old stillness, as if nothing had pressed against it. "Keep the fire high," I said. No one argued. We fed it like a third person, and pretended that would carry us. We checked tents. We lined up headlamps where our hands could find them in the dark. We tucked socks and jackets and water within reach. The sky refused us stars. The clearing held the last rectangle of light like a dying bulb. Maya closed her sketchbook and tucked it away like a fragile thing. She wrapped her arms around herself and stared at the tree line. She spoke softly. "We are not alone." Ethan tossed a pebble into the fire. "Deer, coyotes, squirrels with opinions." Rachel's gaze stayed on the dark. "I don't think it's deer." The smell of damp earth thickened. The air felt as if it had weight now, like a blanket that didn't warm. The forest wasn't just quiet, it was attentive. I could feel the attention, like pressure on the back of my neck, the way you do in rooms where someone watches you from a doorway. Liam and Sarah leaned together, firelight running up their faces, the kind of picture people take without realizing it will be the last time they look this unafraid. I counted us under my breath. A private habit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I kept doing it, as if the number itself could keep us whole. When full dark lowered itself, it didn't fall. It arrived with patience. The circle of light shrank by inches. The trees crowded the edge without moving at all. We spoke in lower voices without meaning to. We laughed once or twice to prove that we could. The sound went up and stopped, caught in the needles. We didn't say safe. We didn't say scared. We kept the fire loud and bright, and pretended that was the same as loud and bright inside our bodies. Before bed, I walked the perimeter. 10 paces, turn, 10 paces, turn. A fragile wall built with footsteps. The marks on the birches were somewhere behind us in the maze. I could feel their angles in the bones of my wrist. When I came back to the chairs, everyone watched me without making it obvious. They wanted to read my face. I put on something steady. "Bathroom and teeth before we turn in," I said. "Buddy system." Maya stood, but didn't move away from the light. Rachel touched Ethan's arm, and they disappeared just beyond the ring and came back faster than dignity would like. Liam and Sarah said they would wait. The fire spit and sighed. The woods took in the sound and did not give it back. We zipped the tents and left the fire hungry for another log. The clearing exhaled a breath I couldn't quite hear. I lay back in my camp chair for one last minute and watched the dark hold at the edge like a tide that had decided not to surge yet. My eyes blurred. The black stayed smooth. Somewhere, something knocked only once, and then not again. When I finally crawled into my tent, the warmth from the fire had not touched the ground. My sleeping pad crackled. My breath made a small white cloud in the beam of my headlamp and vanished. I closed my eyes and the forest stayed with me, a weight across my shoulders asking to be carried into sleep. The fire had settled into a red breathing thing, low and steady, a voice under a blanket. The clearing felt smaller than it had an hour ago, like the trees had leaned in while we weren't looking. My headlamp gave a tired blink and went quiet. I didn't want to burn its last drop unless I had to. We sat close to the coals. Maya hugged her fleece tight and watched the dark like it might speak if she was patient. Ethan slouched with his hood up, cracking a twig in his hands 1 inch at a time. Rachel had her elbows on her knees and her fingers laced, still, as if she were bracing against a wave. Liam and Sarah were shoulder to shoulder, firelight turning their faces soft and warm. No one made big sounds. The night had a way of making everything feel too loud. When a coal popped, it felt like a bottle breaking in a church. Maya didn't look away from the trees. I followed her gaze and held it, waiting for my eyes to find what hers had found. The tree line was a weave of black and deeper black. For a second I thought I saw a pale oval there, like skin catching a smear of light that didn't exist. It slipped out of focus before I could fix it. Ethan's voice came small. "I hate how the silence has opinions." Rachel glanced at him. "It's listening." I refused to entertain an audience without a tip jar. Liam poked the coals with a stick. A coil of flame stirred and lay down again. He looked past the gap where we'd dragged wood earlier, toward the sliver of deer path that cut around the clearing. "Walk," he said to Sarah. She nodded and got up with him. Their fingers found each other like magnets. She lifted 2 headlamps from the cooler and clicked them on. His beam swung left, then right. Hers traced the path we'd used. Cones of white cut shallow tunnels into the brush. 2 minutes, I said. Stay in earshot. We'll stay close. Romance can be local, Ethan said. Boundaries are hot, Rachel said, almost smiling. The beams slid through the gap and were gone. The branches settled behind them with a soft whisper. I listened for their footsteps and heard only the fire and the small private sounds the forest made when it thought no one was paying attention. We waited. The minutes stretched the way they do when you're counting them with your teeth clenched. The air felt heavier, not colder exactly, but thick, like breathing through fabric. I wanted to call out immediately. I didn't. I gave them their 2 minutes, one more for good faith, another because giving in too soon felt like admitting something I didn't want to name. When I finally called, I pitched my voice low, the way you talk to someone in another room. Liam. The trees returned my name without echo. The sound stopped 3 yards out, as if the air swallowed it. I tried again. Sarah. Silence held. Somewhere off to our right, a twig snapped, clean, a single note, like knuckles tapping a door. Then nothing. Ethan peeled the last strand of bark from his twig and let it curl away. I'm sure they're 10 feet away, making out and laughing at us. Rachel kept her eyes on the gap. Then they can answer. Maya's hands had gone white around her elbows. She relaxed her grip and placed her palms on her knees, like she was reminding her body it belonged to her. She spoke without turning her head. If you hear your name from the trees, don't answer. Why? It won't be them. We sat with that for a long breath. I stood. Okay, short check. We don't leave the light. We go together. We stepped to the edge of the firelight and stopped at the line where the warmth faded. The temperature dropped like a clean step down into a cellar. The smell changed too, from smoke and sugar to wet leaves and wood and a sweet faint rot I couldn't place. Liam, I called again. Sarah, coming out. We pushed through the gap a few feet, just enough to see the path. Our headlamps carved out a thin hallway between trunks. The beams looked weaker than they should have, as if the dark here were heavier than any other dark. I scanned the ground. No fresh scuffs, no crushed ferns, no shine of a headlamp bouncing back from around a bend. The corridor of light bent left and then right, and beyond that bend, the night pooled like a closed door. Rachel stood close enough that our sleeves touched. Back to the fire. Yeah. We retreated to the circle and stepped into the light. The relief I expected didn't fully arrive. It stayed a step behind us, like we'd walked faster than it could keep up. Give them another 2, Ethan said, as if offering a compromise to the night. 2, I said. We fed the fire. It took the new log with reluctance, then settled again. The coals breathed. The flames leaned and whispered. The tree line stood very still, like it was in on a secret. Laughter floated through the trees, distant, thin, a warped ribbon of sound, like someone had taped voices and stretched the tape until it wobbled. Not close and not far. It came from no single direction, a smear in the air. Ethan forced a small chuckle that died fast. Night hikers. No light, Rachel said. The laughter faded without moving away, as if someone had turned the volume knob down and left. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until my chest ached. 2 is up, Maya said quietly. We stepped to the gap again, and this time I raised my voice a little, stupid to pretend we weren't worried. Liam. Silence. Then an echo came back, duller, late by a heartbeat, my own word shaped by another mouth. It sounded like the forest had rehearsed and wasn't quite there yet. Rachel stared into the dark. That isn't funny. Ethan stood and pushed his hood back, hair caught flat against his head. He looked at me instead of the trees. We should go a little farther. Not deep, I said. Just to the bend. We went. The path took our lights and ate their edges. The earth was soft and springy under our boots. We reached the bend, and the bend gave us another bend. The night seemed to slide along with us, like a wall on wheels keeping pace. We stopped. I pivoted my headlamp slowly, letting the beam skate across bark, across gaps, across the spaces where a body would look different than a trunk. Something bright flickered and vanished. Eyes? Reflective tape? The absence of anything felt louder than a shout. Liam, I said. Sarah. Nothing. No step, no whisper, no human sound at all. Rachel's voice was small. Back. We backed out the way we came, careful not to turn and run, careful not to give the dark that satisfaction. The clearing took us in. The fire was smaller again, as if the time we'd spent out there had cost it inches. We stood and listened. The knocking returned, this time closer. 3 taps, evenly spaced, waiting for someone to answer with a pattern of our own. The space between each knock felt long enough to fit a word. Ethan cleared his throat. We are not answering a knock in the woods. No, I said. Maya didn't move at all. The only sign she was alive was the lift and fall of her shoulders. After a moment, she spoke in a flat tone that made it more true. They're not coming back. They're close, Rachel said almost angrily. They can hear us. They can hear us, Maya said. That doesn't mean they're ours. We waited, 5 minutes, 10. The night took the minutes like coins into a box. The laughter did not return. The knock did not either. The fire pulsed, lower again. We added wood. It felt like feeding a smaller, hungrier version of itself every time. I don't like the idea of walking this place in the dark, I said. We do short loops on the edge. We don't lose sight of the light. We keep calling. We rotate. Ethan nodded. I'll take a loop with you. Rachel glanced at Maya. We'll go after. I didn't want any pair to go, but standing still was its own problem. We took our lights to the edge and traced the perimeter, just inside the trees, the fire a dull orange to our left the whole time. We called their names and got clicks and small rattles in return, tiny sounds like teeth accidentally touching, the soft sweep of fabric on bark. Once, behind us, a breathy exhale that might have been wind if wind existed tonight. We came back with nothing but our own voices in our throats. Rachel and Maya took the next slow lap. Their beams ghosted through the brush, steady, unhurried, careful to stay within sight. They returned the same way, faces unchanged, the gap unchanged, the missing, still missing. We sat again. The conversation tried to rise and fell in pieces. Sun up in a few hours. Feels like longer. Coffee first thing. Swimming after. Saying it made it feel less likely. The night had a way of flattening any tomorrow it didn't approve of. Another few minutes. Another pass around the edge. The fire sank into a wide bed of coals that glowed like a mapped city at night. Sparks rose and died in a small, disappointed flurry. I don't think we can keep this up till morning, I said. We do shifts. 2 up, 2 ready. The rest try to sleep. If you hear anything that isn't one of us, you wake everyone. No hero moves. Maya nodded. I can stay up. Rachel nodded. Me too. Ethan raised a hand, then dropped it. I'm not sleeping anyway. You need to try, I said. We need you normal tomorrow. Define normal. Less worse than this. He almost smiled. Copy. We spread sleeping bags but left tent flaps open so the orange wash could reach inside. I lay on top of mine instead of in it. The ground was colder than I expected, and the thin pad between us amplified every stone, every root, every imagined heartbeat under the dirt. From the chairs, low voices. If something stands at the edge, don't call to it. Don't look at faces. Keep the fire up. My eyes wouldn't stay closed for long. Each time they slid shut, my brain pushed a picture against the inside of my lids. 2 cones of light moving away, bobbing, skimming over ferns, pausing, turning, and then lowering, like heads tilting. The beams went out in that picture. The black rushed in. I opened my eyes and saw the same black holding steady at the edge of the clearing. I rolled to my side and watched the others through the tent mesh. Ethan's hood was up again, his head tilted like he'd fall asleep if he gave the idea permission. Rachel had her hands wrapped around a mug she wasn't drinking from, face turned toward the gap. Maya sat very straight, as if posture itself were a guardrail. The firelight laid a warm line along her jaw. Her eyes never left the trees. I listened for headlamps clicking, for the sound of 2 people returning, for a laugh that belonged to them and not to whatever had tried to imitate them. The forest answered with its small inventory of night noises. A scurry under needles, a single dry leaf turning, a far-off shift like a hillside settling. Every few minutes, one soft click, as if something tapped stone to remind itself we were here. I must have dozed for a shard of time, because I woke with my heart punching at the wrong speed. Sure, I'd heard my name. I lay still and waited. Nothing. The chairs were there. The fire breathed. The trees made their silent, listening face. I swallowed, and my throat felt lined with cold. "Alex," a voice said from the dark, not loud, not close, flat, as if someone had pressed the word out through a mask. I didn't move. My body wanted to answer on reflex the way you answer when someone touches your shoulder. The word hung on the line between the trees and the clearing, and didn't come in. A beat later, a second voice layered over it. Same tone. The vowel wrong by the smallest degree. My name rehearsed by someone who had never had to use a mouth before tonight. Maya didn't look at me. She spoke with that same steady quiet. "Don't." I kept my eyes on the fire. I kept my teeth together. The voices didn't try again. The silence after felt padded, like a soundproof room. I don't know how long I lay there, awake and almost not, floating on the thin surface where thoughts blur and time bends. The fire narrowed to a red seam and widened again when someone fed it. The cold built a patient case, and I lost ground to it inch by inch. My last clear picture before sleep took me was Liam with the skewer raised like a toast, and Sarah leaning into him, both of them outlined in amber, faces soft with plans for morning that felt simple and inevitable. That picture shook, and the edges smudged. I saw it tilt, just a fraction, as if the world had turned and the people in it had to follow. The eyes in the picture lifted and found me, brighter than they should have been with that small fire. The mouths opened as if to shape my name in the old way and offered me the new way instead. I opened my eyes. The gap was the same smear of black. The chairs were the same hunched silhouettes. The forest breathed as one big thing. I listened for footsteps that didn't come. I waited for laughter that didn't. The coals held on. When sleep finally dragged me under, it felt like sliding into a lake and not touching the bottom. My last thought was stupid and human and stubborn. First light coffee, the lake, we'll go together. They'll be fine. The forest didn't argue. It just pressed its cool hand to my chest and came with me into the dark. Dawn doesn't so much arrive as thin the dark until it gives up. The sky turns from black to the color of ash water. The fire is a low red seam under gray. My mouth tastes like smoke and old metal. Every breath feels damp. For a second, my brain forgets about them. The second after remembers and drops the weight back in my chest. 2 empty chairs sit where Liam and Sarah should be. 2 packs. 2 jackets folded neat as promises. 2 phones face down. Clean screens waiting for a touch that never came. 1 skewer. The tip charred, tacky with sugar. No one says good morning. The word would bounce and die here. Maya sits wrapped in fleece, knees pulled in, eyes on the tree line like she's trying to read weather with her bones. Rachel leans forward, hands laced, jaw set. Ethan's hood is crooked, hair pasted to his temple. His eyes are red at the edges. We look like we slept and didn't. I kneel by the pile of their things and turn 1 phone over. The screen blinks to life. Polite lock screen. The empty signal symbol like a straight mouth. The time says morning. The air says otherwise. Maya doesn't turn her head. They didn't take a thing. Rachel stands, fingers brushing a jacket sleeve as if it might answer. Not on purpose. Ethan staggers to his feet and rubs his face hard. Coffee. Wait, I say. Ground first. We fan out without a plan, the way you do when everyone already knows the plan. Not far, not alone. The fog sits low across the clearing, straight edges like a sheet laid carefully on a bed. It kisses our boots and leaves our shins damp. The trees are wet from nothing. Every needle holds a bead of water that makes the light wrong. At the gap where we dragged wood last night, the earth softens. I crouch and press through the needles until my fingers meet dirt. Cool, packed, scuffed. Our scuffs from last night. Under them, a pattern that doesn't belong to the fire. Boot prints, Liam's wide square tread, Sarah's finer lines, their spacing, the way he rolls a little to the outside, the way she cuts her toes in at the turn. They went through here. They came back. They went again. And again. The tracks don't head off. They circle, loose at first, then tighter, a spiral pulled down like water finding a drain. At the center, no last heel, no final toe, just churned dirt and the faint half-moon of a kneeling weight, as if someone leaned in to listen to ground. Maya kneels beside me and sets her fingers where mine already are, so we don't erase it. Her breath makes a small cloud and slides away. They kept walking the same line, or something kept them on it, I say. Rachel hovers a step back, light on her feet. She tucks hair behind her ear to see better, always careful, even now. Look at the bark. The nearest trunk wears a pale oval scrape at knee height where the surface is rubbed raw. Sap beads in clear drops. Higher up, at my shoulder, someone carved the almost triangle deep. 3 lines meet this time. The grooves are clean and dark. Fresh. Ethan swallows. The sound is louder than it should be. Nope. He jams his hands into his pockets and rocks on his heels like he can shake the place off. He looks at me. He wants a decision, like it's a rope he can hold. We check the other edges, I say. If they left any way, the ground will tell us. We make slow passes along the rim, old prints from yesterday, deer sign at the margins, a shallow pit half filled with needles. Nothing heading to the lake, nothing back toward the trail, no plan in the dirt. We end up back at the fire because the fire is still the only thing in the clearing that behaves. It gives what it has. It doesn't pretend. I set the pot on the grate with water from the jug. The kettle ticks as the first tiny bubbles find the rim. The sound is almost normal. It makes me want to cry. Rachel stands at the far edge, staring through fog. At dawn, I saw 2 people there. How close, I say. Right at the trees. Together. I called. They turned and went into the fog. No answer. Lights, Ethan says. No light. Faces, Maya says. Fog, Rachel says. She breathes, steady but thin. They looked like them. The kettle shivers. I watch the lip and wait for a whisper of steam. The forest makes the kind of quiet that pushes on your ears. You're sure, I say. I'm sure what I saw looked like them, she says. I'm not sure what it was. I go for the map and the compass because pointing at things used to matter. The map is still the same neat promise on paper. The compass needle spins a lazy circle and points at my knee. I move. It points at a tree. It shakes, indecisive, like a hand hovering over a row of doors. Ethan peers over my shoulder. That's very helpful. It'll settle. It doesn't. It trembles and makes up new norths. Maya doesn't even look. They don't want us to know where we are. Who? Ethan says. She doesn't answer. She's listening to a frequency I can't hear. She steps toward the opposite side of the clearing, not the gap with the spiral, the other side we ignored. Her head tilts a fraction. The small hairs at the base of my skull lift in sympathy. There, she says. Something changed. We all see it once she points. Not a path, not light. a wrongness. The fog lies different there, in a long flat patch, as if something heavy slept on the ground and thanked it. The needles look combed. The smell shifts a notch sweeter, like fruit that's turned under a car seat. My tongue feels thick. Back a step, I say, and do it first. The fire warms my shins again, thin but real. We pick one path, I say, together. No one argues. Ethan's relief at rules is almost visible. Rachel nods once, jaw tight. Maya doesn't nod at all. She just keeps looking at the place that wants to be a door. We pour the water. We grip warm cups and let the heat sit in our fingers. It stays, a small gift. I tuck the map and the lying compass away. I put on my pack. I drop the whistle lanyard over my head. The bright orange looks stupid. I want more stupid things like that. We leave a note under a rock that says what we already know. Then we shoulder the idea of a plan and walk toward the wrongness. The fog parts at our ankles. The first line of trunks accepts us with a sound like wet cloth moving over wood. The air turns cool in a way that isn't temperature only. My skin prickles where my jacket touches it. I mark the first few trees we pass with a nicked fern, a tiny stack of pebbles. We keep each other in sight. We talk just enough to stain the air with our voices. Liam, Sarah, we're coming in. Answer if you can. No answer. The words don't carry. They stop a few yards out, like the air has turned thick. We find another spiral, smaller. 3 loops, maybe 4. The last print is a toe and a suggestion of ball, lifted mid-step, a smear of palm in the center. The bark beside it is clean, sap weeping. Above it, the triangle is cut deeper than before. Every line meets. The grooves look wet. Ethan's breath gets faster. We should turn and try the lake trail. How many trails are there? Rachel asks. Too many, Maya says. We stand in it a second longer than we should. The fog slides around our calves and makes the world small by inches. I turn to check the way back and expect a slice of gray that is our clearing, the red of the coals, the idiot kettle. There's nothing. Only more trees graded in green, pretending to be distance. Forward then back, I say. 10 minutes. We move as one. The corridor narrows. The ground goes springy, then spongy, then weirdly neutral, like walking on memory foam tuned to someone else's weight. The smell sweetens for 3 steps, then flattens back to damp wood. A single knock comes from ahead. Not woodpecker. Waiting. The fog thins the width of a hand. In that hand's width, a human face appears between 2 trunks. It is level with my eyes. Pale, smooth, no lamp glow, no shadow that says body, just the face. The lines are Liam's if you measured them with a ruler. The life behind them isn't. The skin looks too tight over the cheekbone, too loose under the jaw, like it was pulled on without patience. The eyes are open, but not bright. The mouth is soft and wrong. Stop, I say, and we do. The face doesn't shift. It doesn't find us. It looks through us. The hint of a body resolves a moment later, fog remembering shoulders. The shape sets wrong, then corrects like someone adjusting a picture frame. The head tilts a notch too far and holds, like a joint that trusts a bad angle. Liam, Rachel whispers, softer than a call, louder than a thought. The mouth opens. The sound that comes is dry, like a stick scraped across bark. It tries again. The mouth pulls into a smile that shows too many teeth for a smile that small. The eyes do not blink. Maya's hand closes around the sleeve of my jacket. The pressure is small and absolute. Back, The face leans that fraction too far, like a mask stretching from the inside. Something makes a soft sweep at our ankles, a draft or a breath. My foot wants to step, the way a foot wants to take the last stair that isn't there. I make it go backward instead. We retreat 3 slow steps. The face doesn't follow. It just is. The not blink weighs more than movement. My heart behaves like I'm running anyway. Ethan's voice is thin. Nope. Rachel's jaw hardens. That is not him. It's not, Maya says. Back, I say again, because repetition builds a little wall. We don't turn our backs to it until the trunks hide it. Even then, we take 2 more steps like that, because superstition is a tool when you have nothing else. When the corridor bends, and the light changes, and the path looks like something we can memorize, we turn and walk like people and not targets. The clearing reappears to our left, even though we came in straight. The fire is a seam again. The kettle sits. The note is under its rock. The chairs look like a set from a play about normal life. No actors. We step into the circle. The heat licks our shins. The cold lifts off skin and hides a layer deeper. I don't feel safer. I feel more outlined, like a pencil line gone darker. No one pretends we saw nothing. No one tries to rename it. The words we could use would make it bigger. Coffee, Ethan says, and laughs once without joy. Please and thank you. We feed the coals. The flame rises, then settles. Rachel stares at the place in the fog where the needles lay wrong. She presses her lips together. She nods once, tiny, like someone who has decided something and hates the decision. Maya stands very still. Her hands tremble once and stop. She watches the trees the way you watch a stranger step into your path and hold out a hand. I try the compass again, out of habit. The needle spins and points at my chest. It might as well be a dowsing rod for dread. A bird calls 3 notes, thin and hopeful. No answer. The quiet after is bigger than the call. Listen, Rachel says. It isn't a sound, it's a pressure. The sense of a room filled with breath held. The forest hasn't let us go. The edges of the clearing feel closer. The trunks stand the way people stand when they agree. I think of the lake and the cliff and the map's blue coin. I think of Liam's stupid promise and Sarah's laughter. I think of the face in the trees like a print pulled from a dirty plate. We're not dealing with 2 people sneaking off, I say. No one answers. They don't need to. The fog lifts another inch. The day brightens without feeling like day. The carving's angle lives under my skin like a splinter. The spiral prints write a sentence that ends where there should be a word. We pack water and first aid. We shoulder straps. I put the whistle in my mouth and taste plastic and fear. Maya scans the tree line one more time, like it might tell her which door will hurt least. Rachel tightens her straps and squares her shoulders, practical as always. Ethan checks his headlamp and winces when it blinks weak. I hear my name very softly, as if spoken from the far end of a hallway. It sounds like me saying it in a dream. It sounds like a mouth learning where the vowels go. I don't turn. I don't answer. I look at the trees, at the fog that wants to be a door, at the place where the ground remembers wait. The forest sits and waits and breathes, patient as a thing that has done this before. The day has begun. It does not feel like it belongs to us. The clearing holds us the way a hand holds water for a moment, before deciding what to do with it. We step toward the edge together, and the woods lean in, and that is how the morning starts. The morning feels borrowed. The fog sits low over the clearing like someone laid a sheet and smoothed the edges with both hands. The fire is a red seam under gray. Our stuff looks like set dressing. Everything that belongs to Liam and Sarah is exactly where it shouldn't be. Packs zipped, jackets folded, phones face down, water bottles half full. The skewer with the charred tip stuck in the dirt like a flag nobody asked for. We don't say good morning. The word would choke on the air. I run the plan out loud because I need to hear it with my own ears. Water, first aid, whistles, headlamps if they will give us anything. Leave a note, short loops. No one goes alone. Keep the fire fed so the clearing knows we remember it. The rules make a shape our hands can grip. It doesn't feel like much. It still feels like more than nothing. Maya drinks from a cup she doesn't remember filling. Her eyes keep tracing the tree line, as if reading a language printed too faint to see. Rachel tightens her straps and checks mine, like she won't trust me to do it right, even though she does. Ethan stares at the compass while it spins and pretends it's funny. The needle points at my knee. It points at a rock. It points at a tree, and then decides trees are not trustworthy either. Pick a north, he says, voice low like we're in a museum. Pick a direction that feels wrong and go that way, Maya says. That's soothing. It's honest. We leave a note under a flat stone in the firelight, the kind of small kindness you offer to yourself later. The whistle lanyards look stupid and bright against our jackets. I love them. I want to love more stupid, bright things. We step past the first line of trunks, and the smell changes. Smoke and sugar give way to wet leaf and old wood and something faintly sweet, like fruit left in a hot car. My skin rises in a field of small shivers where my clothes touch. The light is flat and low and seems to come from everywhere and nowhere. We keep the clearing in sight as long as we can because sight is church now. 10 steps, 15, 20. The orange smudge of coals slides behind a trunk, and then another. At 30 steps, it disappears, as if it went out between breaths. The fog swallows sound. The forest asks for silence, and gets it. Rachel's voice is a careful thread. Left of the snag. Copy, Ethan says, softer than the word deserves. We follow a faint deer path that barely qualifies as one. The ground is soft and matted and springy with years of needles. It takes our weight without complaint and gives back the bare minimum of sound. My boot catches once on a root that wasn't there a moment ago. I don't look down because the root will be there if I do. It will also be there if I don't. The knowledge lands either way. We call the names without shouting. It feels like the place would punish noise, as if it were an insult. Liam. Sarah. Nothing answers. The silence is not empty. It is full of listening. A minute later, from deep in the trees, laughter floats again. Not close, not far. A thin strip of sound that wobbles like tape stretched and rewound too many times. It has the shape of their voices without the weight. It sounds like someone remembering how they laughed without understanding why. It comes from ahead, or behind, or above. It doesn't come from where it should. Ethan breathes out hard through his nose. I hate that one. It's out of tune, Rachel says. Like it's a copy, Maya says. We move on. The deer path splits and then meets itself again. The trees feel closer than their trunks look. The light shifts one note darker without warning, and then lightens by the same degree. My sense of distance goes soft and unreliable. I check the compass again, because that's what a person does to prove to themselves they are still a person. The needle trembles and wanders like a moth that forgot what it loved. Landmarks, I say, because the word is a tool. We make them. A small stack of 3 stones where the path divides. a strip of blue tape from my pack tied around a low branch, a ribbon of bark peeled from a deadfall and draped where it will show. The forest rearranges itself behind our hands as if to shrug. We walk for what feels like 20 minutes, and the fog still sits at our ankles and the air stays the same weight. And when we break into a slightly wider space, I feel the relief hit and then let go, because I know this shape. The fire ring is not there, but the ground looks scuffed in a way that remembers us. The thumbprint of our earlier fear sits in it like a pool that hasn't quite drained. Rachel stops dead. No, it's not the clearing, I say. It's a cousin. Cousin? Ethan says. Great. We're looping, I say. That doesn't mean we stop. We're being led, Maya says. Her voice is soft, not dramatic. The statement sits there between us and slowly becomes true because it fits the other shapes. We angle right, then left, then stubbornly straight, because stubborn has helped before. The trees change species and then change back without a break. A log that should be rotted through on one side shows a fresh cut, as if someone sawed it yesterday. There's a mark on a birch at shoulder height, 3 lines cut deeper than the ones we saw before, the almost triangle committing. Sap beads along the groove and catches the light like wet eyes. Don't touch it, I say. I wasn't going to, Ethan says, hands already in his pockets. Maya stands a breath away from the cut and doesn't blink, and then steps around it, like she refuses to give the shape the respect of her fear. We catch the edge of a low ridge and angle along it, boots digging into damp soil. The fog thins and thickens again, like it's breathing. The voices come back. Not laughter this time. Sarah crying. A private sound we should never hear. It comes from our right. It comes from our left. It comes from above. It pulls the body in a direction before the brain says no. Rachel sets her jaw against the sound until the muscle jumps near her ear. It's not her. No, Maya says. We cross a downed tree hung in the crook of 2 others, the trunk stripped and pale, caught like a body at the shoulder. The bark around the catch is charred. The air smells faintly sweet again. I step under it and feel something pass across the back of my neck, like a cobweb that isn't a cobweb. Ethan flinches. Did you? Yes, I say. There are moments where the wrongness stops pretending. This is one. The light holds too steady and too flat for a forest morning. The quiet has a texture, like thick cloth. The path ahead bends around a pair of pines that grew too close together and then splits where it shouldn't. The split is narrow and petty, the kind of choice your legs want to make for you so they can end the fact of deciding. Left, Rachel says, and she says it so lightly and so quickly. It sounds like a reflex. She meets my eye a second later, and her expression apologizes for deciding out loud. We go left because it costs less than not. The path squeezes, the trunks closing in like the arms of a chair. I feel the geometry of the space shift, a subtle wrong angle where there should be a right one, a floor that slopes a degree toward whatever watches from behind trunks. My breath goes shallow and noisy in that way that comes from not wanting to offend the air. Jacket, Rachel says suddenly, and points. A flash of green slips between 2 trees ahead and right. Not bright, but the exact dull tone of Liam's hiking shell. Hey, Ethan says, like the word is a rock he can throw. We move without running. 3 steps, 5. The flash repeats and then goes behind a rise. It's not a person. It's the idea of a person used as bait. I know that, and still make my legs go faster for 2 more strides because hope is the strongest stupid thing we have. We crest the rise, and what's on the other side is only a small hollow full of dead ferns and a single scrap of green cloth stuck on a branch. I pluck it free with 2 fingers. It's nylon. It's nothing. It doesn't feel like fabric that belonged to anyone. The branch has no snag. The scrap is clean and dry in a place where everything else is wet. Ethan blows out a breath through his teeth. That feels mean. It is mean, Rachel says. We keep going because stopping feels like kneeling. A slow knock comes from ahead in 3s. A pause between each like a teacher giving you time to answer. We don't answer back. The sound shifts to our left. It shifts again. It is everywhere and nowhere, and it is patient. My watch face is mud-colored and useless. Time unthreads. My legs do that hollow ache thing that says we've put in miles, even if the forest says we haven't. My mouth tastes like old coins. The smell in the air flattens, like something using your sense of scent for misdirection is bored of the effort. The compass needle settles for 3 whole seconds and points somewhere that could be north until I move an inch and it decides to prefer east and then south. We cross a shallow trickle and the sound of it is wrong. It matches our steps, then tries to lead, then falls behind. Maya stops mid-stride and waits until the water picks a rhythm that isn't a person's, and then moves on. The trees thin just enough ahead that I think we're about to step into a small meadow, and I feel the relief say it is happy to meet me. And then the relief pulls back, because what's beyond the thinning is not grass. It's brush, tall and tight, and interlaced with dead branches that snag clothes and skin with equal fairness. There's no real gap. There's a suggestion of one. I point with my chin. Through there. Ethan looks at his jacket sleeves like a preemptive complaint. Love a good bramble massage. Low, Rachel says. Stay low. We crouch and push. The brush folds in around us and makes that dry whispering sound you get when twigs comb hair. Thorns test the fabric and slide off. A dead stick snaps across my shoulder blade, and the sound is too sharp for the thickness of the air. The ground under the brush is uneven and wants to roll ankles. We take the space, because taking it feels like telling the place it doesn't get to choose everything. Halfway through, the air changes temperature by a notch. Not colder, not warmer, different. My throat tightens as if at altitude, and then loosens as if there's less pressure on it. The smell picks up a new note, a closed room smell, stale and human and old. I know it from basements and abandoned sheds. It should not be here. Maya stills. She points with 2 fingers to our right. I angle my head and look past her through the net of branches and see a dark block of something vertical where there shouldn't be anything but trees. Shapes repeat in my brain before my mouth commits. Rachel moves next to me and breathes a small word that could be a prayer or a curse. Ethan stops moving and lets the brush settle against his arms, like the forest is measuring him for a suit. We push the last yard and break out into a small clearing we have not seen before. The air is wrong in here, even for this place. It is the wrong stillness, the way a closed room feels, even with a door open. The ground is packed flat, in a rectangle in front of the thing that sits in the center of the space, as if many sets of feet have stopped in the same place, over and over. It's a cabin, not a cute one, not the kind you rent with a hot tub on a deck. A squat, tired rectangle that looks like it was assembled from whatever wood was nearby, and then left to sag into its own shape. The roof is low and heavy with moss that hangs in beards. The windows are small and dark, and wrong in proportion to the wall. Above the door, 2 antlers are nailed in a crooked set, points splayed like hands held up in surrender or warning. The door itself is slightly open, the slant of it making an off angle that your eye wants to fix and cannot. The smell coming from it is stale and human. The same sweet rot the forest wears sometimes sits here, louder. The beam over the threshold carries the same carved triangle cut deep and sure. The grooves are dark, as if they were burned, not cut. More marks run along the doorframe, a recipe or a list or a count. My brain tries to make a timeline. We walked here. The cabin is here. If the cabin were here before, the map would say so. The map has never met this place. Ethan makes a small sound that isn't a laugh. Cool, the brochure forgot to mention the haunted gift shop. Rachel doesn't smile. This shouldn't be here. Nothing here should be here, Maya says, and the word here doubles. A different here for the cabin than for the woods. Two addresses at once. I step closer because the part of me that keeps people safe thinks it can. The boards under my boots don't creak because we haven't stepped on any yet, and still I feel a creak in the air, a settling. The windows are dark but not blind. You can feel eyes behind a wall. You can feel air thick with a life it didn't earn. Wait, Maya says. We can't wait, I say. We can't run, Rachel says. Ethan swallows. Pick your poison. I aim my light at the doorway, and the beam seems to go less far than it should, like the dark in the cabin is thicker per square inch. Dust swirls in that close light and settles. It is the kind of dust you don't get in a place that only animals use. It is the kind of dust you get from people moving and then not moving anymore. I look back at the trees behind us and the brush we fought through. You can't see the clearing we came from. You can't see anything else. The forest wall makes a theater backdrop. The air tastes like a room that learned to keep secrets. Do you hear that? Rachel whispers. At first I think it's the old laugh again, but it isn't. It's a sound from inside the cabin, a soft scrape, slow, like chair legs on wood. Then a pause, then another, as if someone is settling carefully into place, moving the minimum. Maya's hand touches my arm. Her fingers are cold. Her voice is steady and small. We were meant to find this. We don't have to go in, Ethan says. We already did, Rachel says, and the words land like a truth my body recognizes and hates. The door shifts, not opens, shifts. A line of darker dark appears where it wasn't a moment ago. The antlers above it tilt a fraction, or my eyes make them tilt to match the wrong angle of the door. The symbols in the beam swim if you don't look directly at them. When you do, they are nothing but cuts. I don't want to say the names. I do it anyway. Liam. Sarah. The air in the doorway changes shape, as if someone inside just turned their faces toward the sound. The scrape comes once more, a small chair leg moving the smallest distance across an old floor. Then the quiet again. Then the soft exhale of a room that knows it is about to host something. We stand at the edge and balance on the lip of going in, or not like the edge of a dock, toes over water. The fog sits just beyond the walls of the clearing, as if respecting boundaries for once. The forest watches from the dark like an audience that already knows the ending. Maya's shoulders lift with a breath and settle. We can't leave them here. Ethan closes his eyes for a second and opens them on purpose. Okay. Rachel looks at me to see if I'm going to be what I promised when we parked in the lot and shouldered packs and pretended maps mattered. I nod because nodding is what a leader does, even when the person doing the nodding is just a scared man in a wet jacket. We step onto the packed ground toward the door. The air gets thicker and colder by a degree that has nothing to do with wind. The first board of the porch takes weight and complains in a tone that doesn't quite belong to wood. The open door lifts another inch on its tired hinges, not because the wind pushes it, and not because we do, but because we are here, and it is its turn to open. I think of the face in the trees that looked like Liam, and wasn't. The mouth trying to learn how to be a smile. The eyes that didn't blink. I think of the circles in the dirt where steps ended without ending. I think of the triangle cut deep and the hands that cut it. We cross the threshold. The doorway exhales a stale cold that finds the damp in my clothes and settles there. The dark inside looks thicker than the dark outside, like dust has weight here. Our lights don't cut beams, so much as push the gloom back by inches. The air smells like wet wood, old smoke, and something human that has sat too long. One room, low ceiling, beams thick as legs. The walls bow, the logs tired and pressed into shapes they didn't choose. A cold firebox sits in the far wall, mouth black and wide, soot stained high like breath. The floorboards rise at the edges and dip, where feet learned to walk the same paths, and then stopped. Carvings run along the beams near the ceiling, not letters, not art, cuts and burns. The same almost triangle from the trees, small and large, sometimes meeting, sometimes stopping just short. If I soften my gaze, they want to swim into a pattern. If I look hard, they're only wounds. 2 chairs face the fireplace, plain wood, slat backs polished by long-ago hands. Liam and Sarah sit in them. My brain replaces them for one heartbeat with what it expects. Color, movement, warmth. Then the picture sharpens, and the absence hits like missing a stair. They look like wax left in a room that never sees sun. Skin a little too tight across a cheek, a little bagged at the jaw, as if it didn't choose where to rest. Hair that lies too quiet. Hands set neatly on knees, fingers together, still as placed objects. Their faces hold faint smiles that never reach the eyes. We stop just inside the threshold. The dust above the hearth hangs in the light and settles straight down, as if gravity remembered itself late. My breath sounds too loud. Ethan drags air and tries to hide it. Rachel is still the way a drawn bow is still. Maya's light shakes once and steadies. Liam. His head turns slow, like a machine taking care. Sarah's follows a moment later, the same degree. Their eyes find us and settle not quite on our faces, as if aligning to a point, a breath to the side. The smiles hold. The room gets colder by a degree that doesn't belong to weather. You came, Liam says. Sarah says it in the same breath. You came. The words are right and not right. Their voices sound like theirs through cloth. Syllables land too evenly. Rachel eases forward a single step. Where did you go? We stayed, Liam says. We stayed, Sarah says, a hair behind him, as if they're reading the same line, and one finger trails the other. I want to cross the room and grab their shoulders and shake. I don't. Distance in here feels like a decision you only get to make once. The floor between us seems long. A draft moves without moving. You left your bags, I say, your phones, your jackets. We don't need them, Sarah says. We don't need them, Liam says in her rhythm. Their chests don't move the way chests should. If they breathe, it's shallow enough to trick the eye. They blink slowly, late, like timing the motion with something outside themselves. When I shift left, Their gaze follows with that same, barely delayed slide that makes the back of my neck itch. "Are you hurt?" Rachel says. "We're fine now," Sarah says. "We're fine now," Liam repeats. The phrase lands heavy. My hands want to shake and don't because everyone is wired to me for what comes next. The rest of the room holds the bones of use. A table, one leg propped by shims. A shelf with 3 empty jars that once mattered. A coat hook with a loop of old rope, gone soft. Near the hearth, a nailed board carries short scratches grouped in 5s. A ledger, a count, or a prayer. I try to stop counting before I finish. I fail, and hate the number that lands in my head. I step 2 boards closer. Light glazes their faces, turns them shiny for a second, then leaves them dull again. A sweetness threads the air under the smoke. It makes the back of my tongue feel thick. Maya stands at my shoulder. She isn't looking at faces. She's watching fingers. The nails are clean. The cuticles rimmed with a faint gray like soot that belongs to skin now. The knuckles look too smooth, like they haven't flexed enough. "Where did you sleep?" I say. "We stayed," Liam says. "We stayed," Sarah says. Ethan pivots in place, scanning corners like the explanation might be taped there for anyone who can read small print. The shadows shift, as if poured instead of cast. The fireplace is cold enough to ache when I lean near it. The ash inside lies level, smoothed. No fresh burn, no warmth. Scratches scuff the hearthstones where the chairs must have inched. A fraction here, a fraction there, until they made a pattern that pleased something. Rachel takes 2 more inches forward, then another. She is cautious even when courage is the only currency. She stops within reach. "Liam." He blinks late and looks a shade to her left. The smile stretches a fraction too wide at one corner, shows a little too many teeth for that much smile. Under his jaw, in the shadow, I glimpse a faint line like a seam and look away, because naming it would make it real. "Look at me." His gaze slides, misses, settles. The pupils don't change. The irises look dry, like paint. Sarah lifts her hand. The gesture is smooth, practiced. Her fingers reach for Rachel's wrist. Rachel doesn't pull back fast enough because part of her still recognizes a friend. The hand closes. Rachel flinches, small, like a memory with teeth. She doesn't yank free, maybe because motion feels like an offering in here. The skin under Sarah's fingers pales, then blooms gray. Not bruise, not dirt. Color drained and returning wrong. Rachel breathes through her nose. Her eyes hit mine. I reach without meaning to and stop, because adding touch would make 2 wrong points. "Let go," Maya says. Sarah eases open, no recognition, just a completed motion. Rachel takes her arm back and stares at the mark like it's a word she can't read. The gray sits inside the pores, like ash stamped in. She rubs with her thumb. It doesn't lift. Cold walks from the spot to her elbow. She holds the arm away from her body like keeping it drier might help. Ethan moves to the window and peels a corner of the curtain. The glass is dirty in a way that starts inside. Fog presses on the other side. The forest wears its face like a child at a window. Ethan drops the curtain as if he touched a hot pan. "We should go," he says. "We should take them and go. Or leave them and go. Pick a middle word later." Maya looks up at the beam over the door. "If we leave, this place comes with us." "It's already with us," I say. Liam and Sarah turn back to the cold hearth in a movement so synchronized it feels like a timed exercise. The slight smiles hold. The skin around their mouths doesn't crack. The light on their faces is light on wax. I try again, because questions are a rope, and ropes hold until they don't. Did you come here alone? Yes, Sarah says. Yes, Liam says. What brought you? They speak in the same instant. We heard you. The room tilts. I run the quick math and hate the answer. We didn't call you, Rachel says. You did, Sarah says. You did, Liam says. No triumph, no blame, just repetition. A small tapping begins in the logs, not settling, not a clock, nails on wood. It moves along a seam, then up a beam, then across the ceiling. The taps space themselves like a lesson starting. The floorboard under my boot creaks in time. I shift my weight. The sound waits, as if it likes us better cooperative. Dust billows in one corner and collapses, as if breath came and went there. I look. The air looks like air, and like a place where someone stands and doesn't move. Maya's whisper barely touches air. Nest. The word is right. The chairs face the hearth like a class. The carvings line the beams like a hymn. The floor swells where bodies learn to stop. Ethan taps the back of Liam's chair with 2 fingers, as if to prove wood is wood. It doesn't wobble. The slat is greasy with old polish. He wipes his hand on his jacket and checks his fingers for anything that stayed behind. Only dust, the boring kind. The lie is that anything here can be boring. From outside, a voice calls for help. Liam's voice, not muffled, not far. The exact sound of him at the edge of the clearing with his hands around his mouth. The word that hooks you and pulls. Every head turns toward the door, except the 2 by the fire. Those turn away, just a fraction, as if their memory of the sound tilts in the wrong direction. The call comes again, closer, urgent, words we taught ourselves not to answer last night. Alex, Rachel, I'm hurt. Old reflex lights the body like electricity. Feet ready, hands ready. Every time he scraped a knee and laughed, wants to make my legs move. I look at the Liam who sits in the chair. The faint smile doesn't change. His mouth opens and closes once, like a hinge taking a test. No sound comes out that belongs to help. Only a soft scrape. Chair on wood. Ethan's voice drops to a thread. Nope. 2, Maya says. Rachel steps toward the door, then stops, jaw set, the gray on her wrist deepening with her pulse. She tucks the arm against her ribs like it might spill. Her eyes flick to me. The fight there is clear. Duty, logic, fear, love, one breath. Don't, I say. The voice outside moves along the wall. It calls the same words, same order, like a line learned by heart. Alex, Rachel, I'm hurt. It stops outside the window, waits just long enough to hear if a human breath answers. The glass shows only trees and fog, but the dust between glass and room stirs as if a hand moved through it. I step between the door and the hearth, because bodies make doors, even when they shouldn't. The seated faces turn a hair away from me, like magnets answering to some other pole. Come home, Liam and Sarah say, not together, but close enough to be one thought. Rachel's voice is rough. Where? Here, Sarah says. Here, Liam says. A single knock at the door. Polite knuckles patience, then 2 more evenly spaced. The beams seem to push down a little. The dust above us turns in a small circle, then falls. Maya's fingers find my sleeve and hold. Do not open that door. I won't. We can't outrun a place, Ethan says. We can survive it, Rachel says. The carved lines above the door do their trick, the angles looking a fraction different when you catch them the second time, like they swivel when you blink. A thin draft moves over my ankles, then the other way, as if something just walked a slow circle inside the room and brushed past. Another knock. Then the voice again, almost pleading now, almost human. "Alex, please." The seated smiles widen a fraction and show too many teeth for that size of smile. The skin around their mouths stays smooth. Their eyes take nothing in and give nothing back. Maya breathes the count. There are 2. The taps in the logs complete a slow ring and go quiet. The chair under Liam keeps its place in the worn pattern on the floor. The door waits. The voice outside waits. The faces by the hearth wait with their small, wrong smiles, patient as a thing that knows it has time. The number sits in my head like a blade, thin and exact. 1 Liam at the hearth, 1 outside calling, 2 Liams. The difference matters. The count cuts through the last place where hope tried to hide. There are 2 Liams. The number sits in the room like a blade. 2. The voice outside waits with its polite patience. The faces by the hearth smile their small, wrong smiles. The door breathes a thin draft across my shins. The cabin feels like a chest holding a breath. Ethan touches his throat, as if checking his own voice is still in there. He keeps his eyes on the door. We hold the moment because moving will mean choosing. The beams press down a fraction. The dust above us turns in slow rings, not drafts, not accident, a pattern the house prefers. Maya lifts her chin to the ceiling. Her eyes track the carved lines, catching angles and losing them, like stars that move when you look up too long. Rachel lowers her marked wrist and pulls her sleeve over it. The fabric doesn't warm it. The gray looks deeper, like ash set. The voice outside circles toward the window. It stops long enough for everyone to count a heartbeat. Ethan says it like a leak. "We have to leave." His words come back from the trees. Same tone, same rhythm, wrong mouth. "We have to leave." He twitches, as if someone plucked a string in his chest. He tries again. "We take them now." The echo is quicker this time, eager to please. "We take them now." A laugh catches at the edge of his breath and dies. He looks at me. Maya doesn't look away from the ceiling. She speaks like she's reading a meter. It's learning. Rachel stares at the window pane. Her breath fogs her side of the glass, then clears. The outside stays clean and dry. I step once toward the door, and every board I cross creaks on the same note, spaced like steps in a lesson. When I stop, the house waits with me, listening. The voice outside tests a new line, a broken collage of us. "Don't. Leave. Please. We." It gets the words out of order, then lines them up again with a tiny delay, as if there were a metronome somewhere in the trees, and it just found the tempo. "Help. Alex. Please." The 2 on the chairs do not shift. Their chests barely practice breathing. The corners of their mouths hold, patient, as if our noise will tire us and then stop. The door moves a little more, not open, not closed, a hinge choosing. The antlers above tilt in an almost friend gesture, the angle you lean when you pretend you're listening. The carved triangle blackens when my light passes over it, only for an instant, an after image that stains the eye. Maya's fingers find my sleeve again. The pressure is small and alive. "Don't open it." We're not leaving through a door that asks. I keep my hand off the latch and back away half a step, as much to show the room I heard it, as to keep distance from that thin breath. The draft follows, and then stops, as if whoever exhaled has to count to 3 before they can do it again. Ethan keeps watching the window, like he's waiting for a hand to press there. A second later, something does. Rachel's voice drops to a thin line. There. I look. At first, it's only pale against pale, a smudge in the wrong place on the glass. Then it becomes shape, cheek, mouth, a face pressed flat, skin spread, features shifted by pressure. The nose flattens into a suggestion. The lips are wrong. The eyes sit too far apart, then too close, sliding like the glass is soft and can rearrange things. It looks like someone learned the idea of a face and put it together on the wrong template. It doesn't fog the pain. The glass stays dry as if the thing has no temperature. The skin looks like wax, pushed to the window with a careful hand from the dark. The face tilts a degree, and the eyes brighten for a blink without reflecting anything. Ethan steps back into me. His boot heel finds my toes, and we both hold the flinch in. The face smooths, then sinks, then rises again like the surface of something pressed and released. It stares through, without finding anything to latch onto. Rachel doesn't move. Her gaze shakes once and stops. Her marked wrist throbs under the sleeve. She rests her other hand on the chair back, not for support, but to keep both hands busy. It's an animal trick. It helps. The tapping starts again, light along the beams, up the wall, a path that remembers a circle. It grows a second track, a partner tempo, the kind of overlay you get when someone teaches a clapping game. The floorboards join with a soft complaint. My weight answers whether I want it to or not. A rhythm finds us and tries to keep us. Maya's whisper barely leaves her mouth. Count it, and it keeps you. I count to refuse it. The pattern adjusts to me, then to Ethan's nervous breath, then to Rachel's stilled body. It wants a chorus. The face at the window slides a fraction sideways. The skin drags like gum. The mouth opens flat and wide, a long oval with no depth. Nothing comes out. When it closes, the lips don't meet right. The line it makes is crooked and too straight at the same time. The pressed mask lifts away with a little spring. The glass is clean. The dust between glass and room trembles, like small things wake when big things move. Ethan whispers without meaning to. I hate it here. The trees say it back in his voice, a touch too late, too proud to hide the mimicry. I hate it here. We stand and let the silence after fill in like plaster. I can feel the cabin choosing what to do with us, not with malice, with a habit so old it stopped needing intention. Rachel turns her face toward the seated two as if to confirm the equation still holds. They haven't moved beyond those hinge swings of their heads. She is reading them the way you read a patient who can still hear you and cannot answer. What do you want? She says, not to either of them, to the room, to the woods, to the air. Sarah's smile lifts a fraction. Home. Liam lifts his mouth to mirror hers. Home. Where is that? Rachel says. Here. Here. The word sticks to the logs like sap. The antlers above the door tilt another degree, the wrong line becoming the new straight. The carved triangle on the beam blurs and sharpens and blurs again, as if a hand stirred the symbol, and then let it settle in a slightly different shape. Ethan flinches toward the door and catches himself. His eyes track the latch, the hinges, the gap. He's doing quick math, too. Angle, weight, breakable. Maya moves to the ledger board by the hearth. She doesn't touch it. Her face changes. Look. Short, shallow grooves, grouped in fives, march in rows. Some have been marked with a line across, a finished sum. At the bottom of the last row, where the wood was clean a minute ago, there is a fresh notch. No dust in the cut. The wood looks wet around it. She looks up at the beams. The tapping speeds by a fraction, in response to being seen. Stop, I say. No unhelpful ritual. The tapping stops like a teacher offended. The sudden quiet roars in my ears. The room feels a little taller, then shorter, like an elevator misjudging a floor. Outside, my name lands in my own voice. Alex. It's not someone calling me. It is me calling me. The way I sound in recordings I dislike. That thin, higher tone that never matches what I hear in my own head. The trees throw it back with care. Alex. Ethan stares at the window as if it's a screen, and he can change the channel by wanting. Try something they won't like. He says the first stupid thing that comes to him. Cinnamon pickles. The forest tries, eager, obedient. Cinnamon pickers. Then again, closer. Cinnamon pickles. He swallows. A laugh gets up into his chest, sees where it is, sits down again. The rhythm starts up in the walls in a new loop, as if pleased we are playing. The boards underfoot join, then the soft cough of the hearthstones cooling. Joins, then the rafters with a dry jitter that taps dust out of old cracks. The cabin makes a song one piece at a time. Maya stands between chairs and door, small and absolute. If we run, it comes with us. It already did, Ethan says. Rachel's eyes flick to mine. The mark on her wrist has crept toward the crook of her elbow, a thin tidal stain under skin. It looks like the color of the cabin is learning the path to her shoulder. I'll wrap it, I say. She pulls back a little, not from me, from the idea of more hands. Later. The face returns to the window and presses harder, wide and long, like someone tried to look like wonder and got the geometry wrong. The eyes don't blink. The glass bows a fraction and becomes flat again. The mouth widens. Nothing fogs. A line of cold drafts around our ankles, then up our shins, like small hands testing for seams in our clothes. I fight the itch to lift my feet off the floor as if water has risen. The voice outside finds a new trick. It steals Ethan's last words and adds his laugh. It almost nails it this time. The laugh is too long by a beat. Ethan flinches like he can be hit by his own sound. Don't answer it, Rachel says. I'm not, he says, offended and scared. The two in the chairs speak together with quiet patience. Stay. Maya looks at them without hate. There is no mercy in her face either. No bargain. They are there, and she is here, and she will not give whatever this is more than that noticing. The floor shifts under my boots, a slow tilt, the sensation of the cabin rotating a fraction around us. The chair legs scrape an inch in a circle, and then stop with that same careful sound as before, as if the wood is being moved by someone who respects floors. Enough, I say to the house, which is a foolish sentence, and the only one I have. The antlers over the door answer by rattling once, a small clack of old bone on old nail. The sound is all over the room. A face flickers at the other window farther from us, not pressed but present, pale in the way a thing that exists mostly as an idea is pale. It is not Liam. It is not anyone. It is a face trying to decide which human to be. We will not outrun it, Maya says. So we ride it, Ethan says, because jokes are how he steals breath back. I push the chairs 2 inches apart in my head and imagine a path to the door, then the clearing, then a line through trees. My brain draws it clean and straight. The cabin flexes, and the line kinks. Outside, something big moves fast around the cabin once. The sound is a furiously drawn circle on wood. A hand, a paw, a crowd. The first slam hits one wall, a flat palm of force that snaps dust off the beam and shakes the jars on the shelf. Before the rumble can die, the second slam hits the next wall, then the next, then the door, then back again, a ring of impact too smooth to be feet, too fast to be bodies, as if many hands are running a track. The air jumps, the floor answers, the beams tremble. The knocks stack into each other and become one sound. The antlers rattle harder and then keep rattling like teeth. The ledger board quivers, the fresh notch gleams, the window glass hums, the face pressed against it becomes flat as paper. Rachel grabs the chair back with both hands and sets her feet. Her jaw is iron. The gray on her arm climbs, a slow flood. She holds and does not move. Ethan crouches without telling his knees to. He looks up the corner where the wall meets the ceiling, as if he expects it to split and a thing to pour through. His mouth is open. He closes it. He opens it again. He is almost speaking into the knocks, like a person arguing with thunder. Maya plants herself between the hearth and the door, as if her small body is an anchor no force can move. She meets the air with a look that is not defiance and not surrender. It is attention. It is the gaze you give a wild animal when you are trying to be a tree. The slams build speed until speed stops mattering. The sound is around, through, under. The floor rises a fraction and drops a fraction, as if the cabin is being rolled across someone's palms. The carved lines on the beams tilt in place, the triangle turning 1 degree and then snapping back, like an eye twitching. The door swings without swinging, the latch lifting a hair, settling, lifting again, but never opening. The manners of a host who has decided how much you may move. I put my hand out without meaning to, and touch the back of Liam's chair. The wood shakes in time with the circle outside. Liam's head lifts a millimeter like a puppet string took slack. His smile deepens enough to show the gums. Sarah's does too. Their eyes brighten and still reflect nothing. The knocks climb into the ceiling and then drop through the floor and then smear into the walls again, faster and faster, a ring of fists or claws or palms, a sound like a dozen pairs of hands circling and circling without getting tired. It wants to be inside our bones. It wants to set the rhythm in there. The antlers bang. The jars on the shelf walk and fall and roll in a line like drilled recruits. The rope on its hook twitches, as if someone jerked one end to count something off. The fresh notch on the board looks wet, as if the sound itself had a blade. A hairline crack appears in the plaster between logs and whispers a line of powder down. The taste of old wood and ash gets thicker. The air goes thin the way air does in a crowded room when no one is moving, but all the lungs are taking turns. "Stop," Rachel says, to the walls, to the air, to her own body. The circle keeps its pace, clean and inhuman. The door bows and straightens. The windows shiver in their frames. The face at the glass moves with the pain, not away from it, a pressed thing delighted by pressure. My name comes again, through the knocking. The syllables laid on the rhythm like lyrics added after the melody. Alex. Please. Help. The boys in the trees have learned the chorus. I step back toward the center because the center feels less false. The floorboards accept the weight and offer the note they like. Maya's hand finds the air where my arm is, and not my arm, and holds there anyway. Ethan's shoulder presses mine once, like a friend on a crowded train. Rachel stands planted, both hands on the chair, both eyes forward, her marked arm a long gray tide that hasn't reached her shoulder yet. The slams crest. The sound sits at its highest and holds. The cabin hums like something alive and happy. Then, all at once, the circle stops. The quiet that falls is so wide and sudden, my ears ring to fill it. For a heartbeat, no one moves. Dust drifts down in flat plains. The antlers hang at a wrong angle and think about how to finish. Somewhere deep, a beam settles a fraction of a fraction and remembers its tree. We realize it together, not because anything tells us, because the body knows when a room has made a choice. The door isn't hung for leaving. The windows won't break for us. The walls like the shape they make with us inside. We are trapped. Liam and Sarah sit by the dead hearth, with their small wrong smiles, their faces unshadowed by any fire, patient as furniture, happy as an empty house with people in it. The cabin holds the last tremor, like a chest holding breath. Dust falls in slow sheets and vanishes on warped boards. The walls look still, but feel busy, full of tiny decisions not to move. My ears ring in the silence, a thin wire sound that makes everything else seem farther away. The antlers above the door hang crooked. I keep wanting to reach up and straighten them the way you fix a picture you didn't hang. The firebox is a black mouth. Nothing burns there, but the shape of it keeps asking for something to eat. The air is wet wood and ash, and a human closeness that never left. Ethan touches his throat, like he's checking to see if his voice stayed inside him. His gaze sits on the nearest window. Let me try it. Rachel doesn't look at him. It won't matter. It's glass. It's the cabin. Maya's voice is level, almost quiet enough to be a thought. It's holding us. Ethan grips the back of a chair that isn't being used by the two that look like our friends. He lifts it an inch and puts it down. White knuckles, shallow breath, that tilt in his shoulders like he wants to run without feet. I want to tell him to swing, because action has weight, and weight feels like truth. But the glass looks like a membrane, not a thing that shatters. If he breaks it, the shards will rearrange into another window. If he breaks it, something may decide the house is ready for air. I raise a hand. Wait. He lowers the chair without a sound. Beyond the old wavy pane, fog presses its face against the world. A smear of trees leans close as if listening. Liam and Sarah still sit with their hands laid neat on their knees, bodies angled toward the dead hearth. Their faint smiles are back, the kind you hold too long for a photo. The skin around their mouths is too smooth. Their eyes brighten without reflecting anything. If they breathed through the hammering outside, I didn't see it. Rachel pulls her sleeve to check the mark. Gray has climbed past her wrist, a cold tide under skin. It isn't bruise. It isn't dirt. It looks like color poured the wrong way. It tingles. Maya watches the line without flinching. It's learning you. Can it unlearn? Keep moving. Don't give it a map. I shift my stance just to ruin whatever rhythm the floor wants from me. The board under my heel offers a small creak, like a pleased answer. I move again. The next board tries for the same note and misses it by a hair. I pretend that matters. Above the door, the carvings look like they did a minute ago. Shortcuts and long, some burned, some scalped out with something sharp and patient. The almost triangle repeated until it almost stops meaning triangle. I lock my eyes on one cut and watch until my lids ache. It holds position like a child who knows it's being watched. When I blink, the mark beside it sits at a new angle by a breath. Not a trick of light, a decision. Stop it. Ethan says it to the beam, like you talk to a dog trying the table. The wood does not care. The corners darken, then lighten, as if someone inhaled the shadow and let it go. My headlamp throws a slice across the far wall. The shadow there follows late, a beat behind, like an actor missing a cue. Liam's head turns a notch. Sarah's follows half a heartbeat later. They don't look at us so much as near us, like a compass that can't find the exact line. You can rest. You should rest. The handoff between them is clean now, the sentence shared and smooth. No cloth over the sound this time, just a human tone, stretched thin in the wrong place. Rachel's jaw tightens. We're not staying. You can stay. You should. The smiles widen a fraction. The skin doesn't crack at the corners. The room cools in a way that isn't temperature. Ethan takes one step toward the window and stops because the glass is looking at him. He looks back at me. I shake my head. He swallows. Then say something normal so I don't scream. Coffee, Rachel says. Heat. Eggs, he says. Toast I hate and still eat. Music, Maya says. Loud, so walls are polite to it. I try, because I ask them to try. Street noise, a bus sighing at a stop, a door that opens into a hallway, and not a throat. The room tries to set a beat under our words. We ruin it, with short lines and long pauses, with breaths that don't match. Maya's gaze touches the ledger board near the hearth. A new notch sits where clean wood used to be. Fresh. No dust clinging to the cut. The groups of 5 make a shape the cabin enjoys. Don't count. I obey. It costs more than I want it to. Numbers calm, and calm feels like a betrayal in here. Rachel presses her marked forearm against her ribs and holds the back of a spare chair with her other hand. She's anchoring herself to something that remembers people. The chair answers by not wobbling. The polish on the slat is not oil, it's skin. The floor chooses a note under Ethan's boot and repeats it when he shifts his weight. He curses under his breath. Another board tries to match and fails. He looks relieved by the failure. Not playing. Above the door, a line where 3 cuts nearly met now meets. The closed shape darkens for a second and then looks like nothing at all. My throat dries. Try the door, Ethan whispers, not hoping, needing. I set my fingers near the latch and feel the draft move around my hand like a curious mouth. The door hangs polite, open by a palm's width, closed by a rule. The antlers tick once without breeze, old bone speaking to old nail. Maya moves close enough for her sleeve to brush mine. Not yet. I step back. The boards thank me, in their little language. We draw toward the middle because the middle is less obviously a decision. The corners deepen. The beam marks settle into patience, like a face that won a stare down. Breathing becomes a thing I have to remember to do wrong on purpose, so the room can't borrow it. Talk, Rachel says. Keep it ordinary. Okay, Ethan says. I want my neighbor's blender at 6. I want to complain about it like a sport. I want the dumb radio at the gas station, I say. Weather report like it can save us. Second-hand books, Maya says. Dust that belongs to paper and not rooms. Liam's smile lifts another notch. Sarah's matches it. They like lists. They like patterns. They like the small human prayers we fold into our days without meaning to. You're lost. You're safe. We're leaving. Home. Where? Rachel says. Here. Here. Something ticks in the wall that isn't settling wood. A small, neat sound, like the edge of a nail meeting a seam. It's there, and then it isn't. The quiet fills the space it left like putty. Rachel looks down at her arm. The gray line has slipped another inch. She flexes her fingers and shakes the tingling out, like she stuck her hand in snow. It doesn't help. The cold belongs to her now, and to the house. How far before it matters? As far as it will go if we let it, Maya says. How do we not? Keep your name, keep your steps yours. What does that even mean? Don't let it count you. The room listens to our stubborn. It likes the shape of it. The beam above the door holds its breath, then lets it out slowly. The cut marks don't move. They don't need to. They have already changed the rules. A soft sliding sound rises from the far corner. At first, it is only pressure in my ears, like altitude. Then it parts from the silence and becomes a thin, dry rasp, the sound of a fingernail walking along the inside of a wall. Ethan looks at me. Mouse. The rasp stops, then starts again 2 feet to the right. The exact same tone, like it moved with purpose. It travels up the seam and pauses near the beam as if listening. It resumes with more confidence, a little faster, a little louder, unbothered by the fact that we hear it. Rachel's fingers dig into the chair back. It's inside. Maya tips her head, as if aligning her ear to a frequency only she trusts, not trying to get in. The rasp rounds the corner and continues along the next wall. It stops at the window. The sound smears there, dull and stubborn, like a finger dragged across wax. It lifts and chooses the seam above the sill. Dust sifts down in a thin thread and vanishes before it hits the floor. Liam and Sarah are listening with their whole faces, the way people listen to music they already know the words to. Their smiles hold. Their eyes never blink. Break the rhythm, I say, and I don't know if I mean ours or the walls. We trade places without trading positions. We shift our weight off beat. We cough when the room expects a held breath. The rasp keeps its own time, satisfied that our attention is the only instrument it needs. Ethan can't help himself. This is fine. Totally fine. The room tries his voice back at him from somewhere far outside, a thin echo, as if the trees kept a copy. This is fine. Totally fine. My skin crawls in strips where the sound passes behind me. I want to scratch back like a child on the other side of a shared wall. I keep my hands at my sides. The rasp completes the first lap and taps once beside the hearth. A polite knock to say it knows what it's doing. Don't count, Maya says again. I don't. I hear the number anyway. The second lap is cleaner. The pause is briefer. The little flourish at each corner more sure. It dips at ankle height as if testing our feet, then rises to shoulder, like it wants to see our throats. When it passes the ledger board, the fresh notch gleams like a wet eye. Rachel lowers her chin and breathes through her nose, a slow iron kind of breath that kept her alive before there were cabins. We need to move. In a minute. Why wait? Because it has just started trying to get out. The rasp pauses, as if it heard its name in her tone. It answers by dragging a longer nail behind the logs, slow enough that if the wall were glass, we'd see the path like a white line. It isn't frantic. It is pleased. It is practicing. The third lap is faster. The sound drops to the baseboard and travels there with a satisfied hiss, then rises again to the seam, just under the beam, as if marking routes for different-sized hands. When it reaches the doorframe, it smears again, stubborn and tired, then lifts and carries on, unbothered by rules we still respect. Liam speaks first now, without Sarah's handoff. You're tired. Sarah doesn't wait to finish him. Sleep. We won't. You will. Ethan glances at the window and flinches. For a second, I think the face is back. It isn't. The glass is only glass. The fog is only fog. I believe it the way you believe a photo of rain. The rasp finishes the third lap and stops beside me in the wall, where a person would place a palm to push a door open. It taps twice. The timber answers with a small give, a breath taken in wood. Then the sound becomes softer and lower, nails traded for skin, It presses. Rachel's marked arm pulses darker and then lightens. She meets my eyes and doesn't blink. What happens if it succeeds? We find out, Maya says. No, we might not get to choose. The pressure eases. The sound moves again, not discouraged, patient. It begins the fourth circle with that slight lift you hear when a runner knows the course and is ready to show someone the finish. The corners get their little signature taps like initials on a painting. The straightaways smooth into a hum. Dust blooms and settles behind it like a path remembering itself. Window, Ethan whispers, throat tight. We have to try something. Not yet. Door. No. Then what? Stay human, I say. Hold your shape. How long? Longer. The rasp completes the fourth lap and pauses by the hearth. It taps once, twice, three. The next sound is the soft push of palms. The beam above us answers with a tiny speaking noise, wood to wood, the syllable a mouth might make when it opens to say the first word it learned. The room waits to see if we understand. The scratching has become pressure, and the pressure has become intent. It isn't asking to come in. It is asking to get out. The pressure on the wall isn't a scrape anymore. It's the soft push of palms. The seam beside the hearth exhales a shallow breath, like a tired lung finding effort. The wood gives a hair and settles back. The sound small and obscene, a mouth practicing a word it hasn't earned. We don't move. It feels like any move would count as help. The push slides away and resumes its path along the seam, a hand traveling the inside of the room. When it reaches the window, the sound smears like before, stubborn against the frame, then lifts and continues, patient. It paces out a circle, the way a runner learns a track. It is not trapped. It is rehearsing. Rachel watches the wall like she's watching a tide climb stairs. The gray under her sleeve pulses with her heartbeat. She doesn't look down now. Looking doesn't change anything, and it makes the thing inside her arm feel seen. Ethan whispers something that is more breath than word. He presses a knuckle to his lips. The line of his shoulders says run, and the room says stay in the voice Wood uses when it has already decided. Maya's face has gone still in the way that means both fear and thought. She studies the seam, then the beam, then our positions, like she's looking at an equation with a variable she hates. The pressure reaches the corner near the door and taps a small rhythm as if touching base with a friend. It goes up the jamb and stops under the antlers. Bone clicks against nail in a dry, pleased sound. The quiet after tastes like dust. It sits on my tongue and refuses to dissolve. Ethan tries to laugh, and it breaks in his throat. He lowers the chair he's been holding by degrees, as if any quick move would make the wall excited. Say something, he whispers. Say something stupid. Breakfast, Rachel says. Toast. 2 coffees. A song in a car I hate until I can sing it. Maya doesn't look away from the beam. Don't feed it new shapes. What does that mean? It learns what we give it. The pressure returns to the wall near the shelf this time and pushes with more confidence, testing different heights as it travels. Ankle, knee, shoulder, like someone choosing where to set their hands before they lift. It pauses beside the ledger board. A new notch winks fresh at the edge, as if cut with the noise itself. That number lives in the room now. I refuse to let it live in me. You hear that? Ethan breathes, and I do. A trickle of smaller sounds following the main push, like fingertips drumming along behind a larger hand. The wall holds. It enjoys being asked. I realize I'm holding my own wrists like a person could tie himself to himself and not drift. I drop my hands and pick them up again differently. The floor tries to memorize the step, and I ruin its memory with an extra shift. The pressure slows at the corner behind me. For a second, it feels exactly like a palm placed gently against the small of my back. The touch is intimate and indifferent. It lifts and moves on. My skin remembers it after the sound does. Rachel works her jaw, then unclenches it. "Alex," she says without looking at me, and the way she says it makes my name feel like a thing I could lose if I'm careless. I'm here. Stay here. I'm here. Good. I expect the next lap. My body tries to time it. My body is wrong. The pressure vanishes for 2 beats longer than the pattern, and in the space it leaves, something else takes shape. A whisper at the edge of hearing. It tastes like air against the inside of an ear. It comes from behind Ethan. He turns without moving his feet. The whisper repeats, close enough to touch hair. It uses his exact tone. It uses the panic he's swallowing. It says what he said a minute ago back to him. We have to go. Then, a shade closer, eager to be praised. We have to go. Ethan puts his hand out behind him like you do when someone comes up the stairs in the dark and you don't want to spook them. His fingers find nothing but cold and a breath. He pulls them back fast. His mouth opens. He closes it before sound gives the room a gift. Rachel's eyes snap to me, then to him. She doesn't ask if he heard it. She asks something else. Do not answer your own voice. Wasn't going to. The copy whisper isn't only his. The room has found the catalog and put the first disc in. A different tone unwraps itself inside the wall, near my left shoulder, private and old. It uses a name only one person used, and that person is not in this forest. It rolls a childhood syllable across a borrowed tongue. It smells like hot summer dust and oil, and the inside of a glove box. It says my name in a house I haven't lived in for years. Buddy. It is my father's voice. It is exact down to the breath he always took before he spoke when he'd been working with his hands. It hits me in a muscle memory I didn't think was still plugged into power. Every part of me turns to listen. I am a child for one clean second. Buddy, come here. I grip the back of my own chair with both hands the same way Rachel does. The wood is cold and not mine, and I make it mine for a heartbeat. My voice comes out wrong and small, and still mine. I'm here. The whisper changes direction, as if pleased with its effect, and moves toward the door, coiling back into the seam. It picks up Ethan's words again instead, because those are easier. The forest will play anything you hum into its ear. Maya hears the wrong name in my face, without needing the sound. Her gaze is gentle with a blade in it. Don't follow it backward. I know. Say your own name. Alex. Again. Alex. Ethan squeezes the bridge of his nose until it hurts. I hate that trick. The wall likes the attention. The pressure returns, faster now, hands sliding along the seam in practiced bursts, rounding corners with flourish, tapping out a code that has moved past learning and into performance. It reaches the window and presses hard enough that the glass makes a deep animal note, and then stops, as if savoring it. The pane stays unbroken. The dust between glass and room floats like plankton. The pressure moves to the door. The latch lifts a hair and settles, lifts again. The door refuses with manners, the way a host refuses more wine when the party is over. The antlers click out a slow rhythm above like teeth. Rachel watches her sleeve, and this time, she doesn't hide it from me. The gray has crept to the inside of her elbow, a thin inland sea that has found a curve it likes. She flexes her fingers. The tingling returns to the palm and rides up the arm. She meets my eyes and doesn't need me to guess what she's thinking. Tell me if it changes how you think. It's only cold. If it uses your mouth, you bite me. I'll do better than bite. Okay. She lifts her chin and breathes slow and wide, like she's making room for her own heart to move. The push leaves the door and drifts along the floor line. It gathers under our boots and tests our ankles and finds the doors of our bodies and taps on them with little knuckles. I feel it in the arch of my foot and the hollow under my ribs. The cabin wants to synchronize something in us that is used to social timing, breath, pulse, step. It wants the easy chord of a group. We have been a chord for years. Refusing that feels like betrayal and survival both. Maya steps into the soft place between chair and door, where the room's attention tries to settle. She is small and absolute, and the only person who looks like a refusal with legs. It's learning, she says. Ethan stares hard at the nearest knothole, like he can see through it. Learning what? Us, our voices, our pauses, the parts of us that answer when called. That's most of me. Then make less of you available. How? Talk less. He presses his lips together and looks wounded that such a joke came true. He nods anyway. The push rises to waist height along the wall behind the ledger and then stops. It feels like a hand finding a switch in the dark. The room holds for a heartbeat. The air changes pressure so gently I wouldn't notice if my skin didn't report it. A deepening, like standing in a church when the organ pulls breath before the first note. What comes next is not scratching. It is a step. The board in the far corner sighs with weight. Another board takes it and answers in the same low voice wood uses when it remembers feet. The sound crosses the floor toward us with patience. It is heavy but not loud. The boards accept it as if they have never forgotten how to carry. It stops where a person would stop if they didn't want to show their face yet. Ethan's chin tilts toward that corner and freezes. His jaw works once. Maya doesn't turn her head. Do not greet it. I don't. My eyes want to. The corner holds a deeper dark. The step resumes, a single tread slow enough to count without numbers. The floor dips and returns under it. It moves along the wall instead of through open air, choosing seams over center, the way this place chooses edges. It stops by the shelf, as if to look at the jars that hold nothing. The jars tremble in a delicate line. Rachel breathes out between her teeth. The sound is an animal not wanting to be known. Her marked arm banded with gray moves with her breath, and the room pays attention to the rise and fall like a metronome. The step resumes and rounds the beam, hugging it with a brush of weight. Dust falls in a faint arc from the cut edges of the carvings. The shape stays in the darker part of the room, between window and hearth, where shadow can cut the face into something you can pretend is a trick. It stops halfway between the chair where Liam waits and the chair where Sarah waits. The two smiles do not change. Their eyes do not track it. They do not need to. The shape leans a fraction out of the dark, as if feeling what the air feels like here. My light touches the edge of a cheek and is swallowed, then offered back. The cheek is mine. The line of the jaw is mine. The small, faint scar at the brow from a childhood corner is mine. A face steps into the space between window and hearth. It is my face. It wears the same 2 days of stubble I do, the same dark under the eyes, the same hair crushed wrong under a hood. The skin sits wrong by a few millimeters, pulled slightly too tight at the cheek and slightly too loose at the jaw. The way Liam's did, the way Sarah's does. It shines where skin doesn't shine, and is dull where skin should be alive. The eyes are bright, but empty, and reflect nothing, like polished stone. The mouth is closed in that relaxed line I know from mirrors. The shoulders under the jacket are my shoulders and not. The stance is mine, stripped of choice. The floor tries to find a note it likes under my boots, and I take my heels off it. The room wants a duet. It has given itself a partner. Ethan makes a small sound that isn't my name, and isn't a curse, and could be either. He takes a half step back. His knee bumps a chair. His hand catches the back and holds hard enough to turn the knuckles yellow. Rachel's fingers tighten on wood. The gray tide under her skin pulses like it is moved by a tide outside. She isn't looking at the face. She is watching me watch the face. Maya doesn't shift. She is paying attention to the air in a way that makes the air behave. The other me stands still and lets the room notice it the way Liam and Sarah let the room notice them. It doesn't blink for a long time. Then it blinks without the small flinch a body makes when eyelids meet eye. Its mouth opens a fraction and closes, testing a hinge, listening to the sound of its own fiber. It opens again and shapes a silent word. It is not sound. It is a rehearsal. It looks at me like a picture, looks at its subject, flat, with interest that has no heat. I know what to do, and I don't. And everything inside me wants to step forward and see if a hand goes through or meets something. The voice behind me chooses that moment to be my father again. Buddy, don't be dumb. I keep my feet. My spine tries to bend toward the word, and I don't let it. I say my name into my mouth where the room can't take it. Alex. The other me tilts its head, a notch too far, then corrects to the exact angle. The motion is a lesson reaching mastery. Ethan's whisper is cracked at the edges. This is not your friend. I almost laugh because the sentence is so small and so true that it might as well be carved into the beam with the rest. If the house is building a script, that line should be in it. The copy's hands lift slow from its sides and hang in the air like they're listening for instruction. The fingers spread, too even, like a diagram. The left hand flexes once. The right stays. It lowers them again, with guilty care. It turns its face toward Rachel next. Her eyes meet mine over its shoulder without moving. She doesn't change her breathing. The mark under her sleeve throbs and steadies. It looks past her, as if she is a cutout. It looks at Maya last, and finds no purchase. The step moves again, one step. The boards take the weight and approve. The face leans into the beam's light. The mouth opens for real this time. Sound arrives late, like a radio coming back after a storm. It tries my voice and misses by a hair, like a singer reaching for a note without breath. It tries again and lands closer. The cabin listens. The walls lean. The door tries its latch. The antlers set their angle, as if a conductor raised a hand. The copy's lips shape my name in the room I'm in. The sound that comes is my voice when I talk into my phone and hate hearing myself. It has the overbright edge of a recording. It slides into the vowel with practiced care. Alex. My name fits the room like it grew here. It takes a step forward. The other me takes the step like a student who has learned the movement, but not the reason for it. The floor accepts his weight with a soft approval. The space between us gets smaller by a fraction that feels like losing a room in my head. I take my heel off the board to stop the house from playing me. It tries anyway, a low creak reaching for a rhythm. I ruin it with a small shift, that shouldn't matter and matters. Ethan's breath bumps the back of my neck and breaks. He swings his gaze to the door as if the wood might blush and move aside. I'm going through it. Don't. He grips the chair he's been holding like it's a handle for the world. I can't stand here and meet you twice. Not yet. Rachel doesn't look away from the copy. You break that door and this place will clap. Then we clap first. Don't give it the tempo. Maya steps a half pace, the kind of motion you make in a crowded elevator when you don't want anyone to touch you by accident. She faces the copy the way you face a wild dog that has wandered into a kitchen. Don't greet it. The copy tilts its head, a notch too far, then corrects, pleased with itself. The mouth opens and closes once, tasting the hinge. It tries my name again, softer. Alex. The sound is exact in the way a voice memo is exact. It is me with the part stripped that makes sound from blood. My body wants to answer to it like a dog, to a whistle it remembers. I grip the back of a chair until the slat bites. I hear the whisper in the wall try my father again and fail by a half syllable, then give up and return to Ethan's words, because those are easier. The house is choosing the path of least resistance like water. Liam and Sarah lift their chins in the same small way, faces still toward the dead hearth, smiling like furniture. Something in their expressions loosens, by a degree I hate to see. The loosening becomes a small dry sound that at first I think is another tick in the wood and then realize is laughter. Soft. Careful. Broken like something that learned to break. The sound fills the room without being loud. It makes my skin ripple in lines along my arms. It makes the spaces between boards feel lined with mouths. It stops on a shared breath the two of them don't need. Don't listen to that, Rachel says. I'm trying not to listen to anything. The copy steps again. When the knee bends, the motion glitches by a breath, like a joint remembered the wrong line and then recovered. The foot lands silently because the house carries it. The face keeps mine in it without belonging to me. The eyes are bright and empty and mirror nothing. They would reflect my lamp if physics were invited here. What do you want? I hear myself say to the wrong me. It opens its mouth and waits for the room to offer a line. Nothing arrives. The mouth stays open a fraction too long, then closes with care. Ethan angles toward the door. The latch lifts and settles in time with his intention, as if it can smell it. The antlers tilt a degree, as if putting an ear down. I'm going. Maya doesn't raise her voice. You'll give it your back. I'll give it my shoulder. It'll keep your shoulder. I have never seen Ethan look like he might cry and laugh in the same second. He nods like a person nods, when nodding is the only shape left that isn't a collapse. Outside the window, the fog presses and relents, a slow tide against glass. The pane bows and flattens without sound. Dust floats between window and room like snow in a place with no weather. I check, because I have to. The glass is empty. Rachel breathes slow. The gray under her sleeve has crept higher, a thin sea licking the inside of her elbow. She flexes her fingers like she can keep it in her hand and away from her shoulder. The tingling has climbed from cold to a strange, dull, live wire. Tell me if you feel pulled. It wants cadence, she says. I won't give it cadence. Her voice is a flat line on a machine. It calms me and makes me want to scream. Both truths sit on my tongue. The soft pressure returns in the seams, not the neat palm pushes from before. Something more impatient, many small sounds together. Scratching turns to clawing. Thin pricks rattle along the logs in small runs, then stop, then start again, faster, like fingertips becoming nails, becoming hooked hands. It circles the room from within with a new appetite. The ceiling answers with a long, tired creak that is not fatigue. It is a stretch. A beam lifts a hair and lays back down. Dust sifts in a line over my head, a thin rain of age. The floor under our boots swells by a fraction and returns. A slow breath through boards. The copy flickers its gaze toward the ceiling at the same time I do, then back to me in a perfect mimic. I am a mirror and a mark. I hate the understanding that lands with that thought. The copy lifts its left hand until the knuckles match mine on the chair. The fingers spread, too neat, like someone drew them to scale. It holds there, waiting for a cue. Don't let it lead you, Maya says. I know. Do you? The clawing builds in the corner behind Liam and Sarah. They sit in its heartbeat like faithful congregants at a terrible sermon. Their smiles tick wider. Their eyes stay dry. The laughter spills out again in two soft threads. It stops as if cued by a conductor. Ethan moves. It isn't a sprint. It's the move a person makes when his head decides and his body catches up. He shifts the chair into his hands like a shield and aims for the door. He isn't 20 when he does it. He's 8 and facing a closet at night. Don't, Rachel says. He goes anyway. I step to cut the angle, and the room cuts mine. The floor offers a trough, and my boot finds it. I keep my balance by being humiliatingly careful. Ethan slams the chair into the open gap, the polite mouth of the door. The wood takes the blow and turns it into a sound I will never forget. Not a crack, not a strike, a swallowed impact. The edges ripple with the idea of a shatter and settle into the exact shape they already were. The antlers rattle like a baby toy shaken too hard. The latch lifts without being touched and settles again with old hinge manners. The chair bounces back into Ethan's hands, light as if someone pushed from the other side with the same amount of force human decency uses to move a stranger aside in a crowded stairwell. He stumbles 2 half steps. He doesn't fall because the room won't let him. His laugh is a knife with no handle. I loved that. Don't love anything in here. Noted. The copy takes another step when Ethan is closest to it, and for one cold second, I think it will reach out and put its hand on his shoulder, like a brother in a picture. It does not. It lowers its hand back to the pose it stole from me. Something scrapes under the floor. Not along the walls this time, below. The boards bulge in a shallow wave that runs from the hearth to the door, like something big, turned over in the earth, and liked the feel of wood on its back. The bulge passes under my boots. I feel the slow push against my arches. The breath in my chest freezes, in the way heat freezes, not temperature, the knowledge of what's moving. The ceiling creaks in answer from beam to beam, like a huge ribcage stretching. A hairline crack walks in a delicate path, across plaster between logs, a white vein in dead skin. Rachel looks at the window because she can't look at the floor and keep her sanity. At first there's fog. Then there are faces in it. They don't lean against the glass. They bloom out of the fog, like the fog is skin and someone is pushing from the other side. It is almost funny for one heartbeat, the way kids make fish faces on a window, cheeks pressed, lips flattened. Then it is not funny at all. The faces are hers, and Ethan's and Maya's, a few inches off true in that way. A forehead too tall, a mouth too even, eyes too bright. Their breath leaves no fog. The glass is clean. They look in without seeing. Rachel makes a sound I have never heard her make, Not panic, not a sob. A sound a body makes when it is stripped for wiring and someone touches the wrong wire. She bends without moving, a small tilt, then straightens by force. She sets her hands on the chair and keeps herself. Don't. I'm not. The copies outside find their rhythm. They press and release together, faces smearing like gum pulled and set back. A third face joins them, and it is mine. The version of me standing inside, still in the corner, and the version of me outside, waiting for its turn. The outside me blinks in a flutter that does not belong to eyes. It opens its mouth, and the window tries to catch the sound, and fails, because there is no sound. Maya does not look. She watches the space where the floor bulged. The board lifts a hair again under the ledger. The fresh notch gleams. A new shadow grows around it. Not light, not lack. The attention of a place settling. Back to the center, I say, because the center is the lie that costs least right now. We move by inches. Even the copy moves, a fraction, as if the room wants it with us. It stands loosely, as if wires have been loosened just enough to allow sway. It keeps me in its geometry. It keeps winning at that. The clawing in the walls no longer circles. It becomes routes. It races along the lower seam, and then runs the beam, and then drops lightning fast to knee height. It tests corners, and is pleased by them. The floor answers with shallow rises that move toward us, like fronts on a weather map. I can't keep my name in my mouth and not use it. I say it under my breath. The room is a thief with good ears. I feel the sound leave without permission and hear it return from outside, at the windows, in a mouth that knows the shape now and likes it. Alex. The window mouths. Alex. Ethan looks at me with a face that would be funny if we were safe. You're popular. Keep your words. Taking vows now. The laughter from the chairs by the hearth thickens, two threads braiding into something that could be delight if it weren't a recording. It stops and starts on command. I want to scream into it. I want to beg. I do neither. I swallow something sharp, and it cuts going down, and it cuts coming up. The copy takes one more step, and is finally close enough to touch me if it would. It does not. It holds my height against mine and waits. If I took one step forward, I'd be within arm's length of my own face. Part of me wants to see what my skin feels like over there. Part of me wants to put both hands through and find nothing. Maya doesn't look at me when she says the next thing. She speaks to the floor, like she's telling the tide what it already knows. If you move first, it will win. I'm not moving. You are. I become very aware of my toes inside my boots. I become very aware of the small adjustments our bodies make to stay upright. I become aware that moving isn't just walking. I make myself bad at standing. I choose stillness on purpose, and it feels like learning how to breathe upside down. The wall scratches grow teeth. They turn to claw marks you can feel from the other side of the wood. The sound becomes layered, some small and quick, some deeper, as if hands of different sizes are agreeing on how to meet us. The boards under the ledger lift, pause, settle, lift again. The center of the room tilts toward the hearth by a hair and back. Liam and Sarah tilt with it without moving, as if the chairs learned a new angle. Ethan looks at the window again and immediately looks away. They're multiplying. How many? A row, he says. Another row behind that. I don't like counting this. Don't. Okay. He counts anyway with the part of the brain that never stops. He nods once the smallest nod in the world and lets the number die before it makes a word. The room inhales. I feel it in my ears. I feel it under my tongue. I feel the nails under the boards press up into the wood and consider their options. The door lifts its latch a hair in sympathy and settles, polite to the end. Listen, Maya says. I do. Beneath the clawing, beneath the soft push at the seams, beneath the teeth on wood scrape, another sound begins, so low it feels like an idea. It is not from the walls. It is not from the ceiling. It is not from the window or the door. It is from the floor itself, from the space we thought was just dirt and old foundation, from the dark this house sits on. Knocking, not on the door, not around, not above, below. A single hollow knock rises through the boards under my boots, close enough that I feel it in my soles. Then another, a foot away, as if knuckles worked along the underside of the room to find where we stand. A third behind Rachel, soft, respectful of furniture, the kind of knock you make on the back of a pew to let someone know you're there, without making the preacher look up. The floor bulges in a broad, shallow breath that passes under us and away. The knock follows it, like a heartbeat follows blood. Ethan's whisper cracks. No. Rachel's eyes close for 1 second, like a door no one else can open. She opens them and looks down, not at her mark now, at the wood that holds us, and the sound that wants to be let up. Maya's fingers hover at her sides the way they do when she wants to touch nothing and everything, like hands on a field of electricity. The copy turns its face down too, mirroring me, mouth parted, as if it can appreciate the architecture of the trap we're in. Liam and Sarah laugh their small mechanical laugh again, perfectly on time with the third knock, like a choir who read the note before it was struck. The next knock is harder. The room answers with dust. The next is closer. The next moves under the ledger, under the fresh notch, under the tally the house keeps for itself. The next is under the chair my hand grips, speaking to my knuckles through wood. The next is under Maya's feet. She does not step away. She tightens into the stillness she chose. The line of knocks becomes a circle under us, too clean to be animal, too fast to be human. A track run by many small hands, in perfect time. It builds speed without losing politeness, then drops the manners and thunders, once like a drum hit flat with a broad palm. We all flinch because flinching is left to us. The house likes that. It hums in the joints. The beams respond like bones. The ledger winks. The antlers rattle a little song. The faces at the window press harder and slide as if the fog has turned to oiled glass. The next knock comes from directly under the center of the room. It is gentle. It is composed. It is a knuckle on a table. It taps once, then twice, then once more. A simple pattern, patient and smug. The floor flexes a hair up with it, as if the hand below knocks and the wood above nods. Something is already inside with us. The knocking knows it. The house knows it. The copies know it. The faces at the window know it and smile with mouths that aren't mouths. The copy of me lifts its head and says my name one more time, so soft it might only be breath. Alex. The next knock rises through the board under my boots and waits for my answer. The knocking threads itself into me until it's hard to tell if the sound is in the floor or in my blood. It rises through the boards and lines up with my pulse, waits when I hold my breath, catches it again when I let go. The cabin learns the rhythm and hums along like it owns it. I stare at the wood grain until it blurs, and the blur still beats with me. Another knock, soft and polite under my boots. A second, a foot away, like a hand walking along the underside to find where we stand. Dust hangs mid-air in pale strips and refuses to settle, as if the room is holding it up to study the shape our breath makes. Ethan tightens his grip on the chair he's been holding like a shield. His eyes flick door to window to floor and back, a loop that speeds up each time. We're breaking something. Now. Give me 1 second. We don't have seconds. Then give me one anyway. He looks at me the way people look at a guardrail before they jump it. His hands shake and stop shaking. He sets his jaw around a word that doesn't get out. Faces gather at the window, like fog learning a trick. 1, then 3, then too many to count without giving the room a number to use. They press softly, cheeks flattening, mouths too straight, eyes too bright. The glass bows inward with a shallow dignity that makes my teeth ache. It straightens without sound. The next row presses behind the first, and the next behind that, our features tested and reassembled in combinations that shouldn't exist. My own face is out there among them, blinking like a bad fluorescent. The beams groan, not the noise of old wood easing, but a body remembering its size. The ceiling lifts by a fraction and lays back down. Shadow in the corners pulls long and then detaches, sliding along the baseboards like spilled oil. It climbs our shins in slow bands. I resist the animal instinct to step away. The next shadow waits to meet any foot I would give it. Rachel rolls her sleeve with careful fingers. The gray stain under the skin has climbed above her elbow and crept to the inside of her arm, where the skin is thin. She presses her palm flat to her sternum, like she's pinning something that moves. "It's in me," she murmurs. "It's crawling, like a net getting dragged across ribs." Left side or right? Left. It keeps trying to catch the breath as it leaves. It wants to own the exhale. Keep talking. I don't want to give it the shape of my words. Give them to me instead. She nods once, a hinge tested and still holding. Her eyes burn, then go cold again. She looks at the door as if it could be persuaded by politeness. Ethan shifts his weight to the balls of his feet. His stance remembers a sprint from years ago and wants to repeat it. If we don't go now, we don't go. Window, floor. I'll take whichever one lies first. It already lied. Then I'll give it a new lie to manage. Maya stands where the room can't decide whether to hold her or let her pass. Her gaze moves from the ledger board to the beam over the door, then to the seam where the wall meets the floor. The tiny muscles at the corners of her eyes do math. Don't give it a rhythm, she says. Not breath, not steps, not speech. That's all we have. Then have less of it. Another knock, dead center. The ledger's newest notch gleams wet. I refuse to count the groups of 5, refuse to let the number set a hook in me. The refusal hurts. It still matters. The other me stands where the beam cuts the light worst. It uses my height, my jacket, my long neck. The skin is a little too tight at the cheek, a little too loose at the jaw, a wax mask warmed and cooled too many times. It watches my mouth with bright, empty eyes, eager to be a mirror, and forgetting every mirror reverses the world. I shut my lips on a sentence that wants out. It opens its mouth anyway, and my voice comes from its throat, with a small delay inverted, a future version of what I didn't say. Wait. My stomach drops. Hearing my voice before I think, it is like stepping onto an escalator that isn't moving and feeling it carry me anyway. Maya lifts 2 fingers like a conductor holding a beat. Close the door behind every thought. That's not how doors work. It is in here. Rachel winces and catches the sound before it shapes. She grips the back of a chair until the slat bites into her palm. The tremor in her arm wants to match the knocks from below. She holds it out of sync on purpose. The defiance looks small. It is not. The faces at the glass multiply by confidence. They press and release together in a rhythm that pretends to be breathing. The pane bows farther, a skin ready to tear. It does not tear. Dust on our side floats like a slow, dirty snowfall and won't touch the floor. Ethan raises the chair, sights the window, sights the floor, sights the door. His shoulders quiver, then still. He lowers the chair without putting it down. We cut the boards and crawl out under the wall. We come up outside. We run until the trees finally act like trees. Maya doesn't look away from the seam under the ledger. There's no outside to come up into. It can't be all house. It is. Rachel glances at me. It wants to be. The knock under us becomes a little more than knock. It becomes the pressure of a hand pressed flat to the underside of the room, testing, patient. The boards rise by the thickness of a coin and settle. A second hand joins the first. A third, farther along, as if a small crowd is gathering to lift. I feel my name form in my mouth by reflex. The old leader word that says, hold on. The copy gets there first. Wait. I slam my teeth together on the dead syllable so hard it hurts. The other me's lips stay parted too long on a sound that never arrives and close with a small, quiet displeasure. It adjusts its head angle by a degree, the way you do when someone fails to smile back. Talk to me, Ethan whispers without looking up from the floor. Okay. Breakfast, coffee, heat. Noise at 6. My neighbor's blender. Street. Bus brakes sighing. A door in a building with ugly carpet. Maya's jaw unclenches a shade. Music that is too loud and stupid in a car we didn't pay for. Liam and Sarah smile their tiny, precise smiles, pleased with our work. Sound moves through their throats that might be laughter if you peeled the meat off of joy and left the bone. It skitters along the ribs of the room and stops like it learned a rule. Do not listen to that, Rachel breathes. I'm trying to listen to anything else. The beam over the door shifts by a hair that is also a mile. The carved triangle darkens and lightens as if a cloud passed between it and a sun that doesn't exist. I look directly at one gouge until my eyes water. It holds still for me, like a child performing goodness. The mark beside it tilts the moment I blink, as if it resents attention that doesn't include it. The shadows climb another inch and stop below our knees. Cold wraps there, then warmth, a confusion that makes the calves strain and then soften, as if learning a new rule for muscles. Rachel's hand moves from sternum to throat. It's higher. How much? The size of a fist. It wants to sit behind the voice. Keep your name. Rachel. Again. Rachel. The fog at the window swallows the shape of her name, the way pond water swallows a stone. Outside, her face presses against the glass in the wrong way, the mouth trying her name without sound. Inside, she keeps her own. The knocks stack closer, almost musical. Under my heel, under Ethan's toes, under the hearth, under the ledger. The circle tightens. The timing quickens. The boards rise and settle in a way that wants to be applause. The copy tracks the tiny jump in my throat, as if it sponsored it. It lifts its hand and studies it like a tool borrowed and not yet mastered. The skin is too smooth across the knuckles, the tendons too quiet, the fingers spread, perfectly measured. It closes the hand to a fist and opens it again. I don't oblige by doing the same, even though my body wants to answer its echo. I move nothing. I become a bad mirror. Stop, I tell my own face. Stop. It says a heartbeat ahead, and the timing is close enough to make the room purr. The ceiling groans in a slow sweep from beam to beam. The floor answers with a drawn breath that starts at the door and rolls to the hearth, lifting under our boots and settling there, as if the cabin wanted to learn waves, and finally did. The ledger notch gleams. Below it, the seam whispers to itself in a voice that is almost a crack. Ethan's patience tears. He brings the chair up in both hands, sucks in air like he's about to go under, and hurls the legs into the bowed glass. The pane shatters with a clean, bright sound no part of this house should know. Behind the broken window is more wall, not air, not trees, endless wood close as a second skin. He hits it again, because disbelief is a muscle, and he needs to use it. The sound changes. The truth does not. He staggers back 2 steps. The room doesn't let him fall. The chair lands upright, obedient, like an animal trained to sit when called. Please. The door lifts its latch in a tiny gesture of manners. The gap does not widen. The draft smells like a basement no one built stairs for. Rachel's breath catches. She steadies it and glares at the floor the way you glare at a dog that is about to jump. If it opens, don't look down. What do I look at? Me. He does. She holds him there. The line between their eyes is a wire you could play music on. It sings one thin note to keep the heart from breaking its own back. The knock under the center of the room stops. The quiet that replaces it is not relief. It is intent. Dust above the seam hangs perfectly still, as if time paused to hear a better idea. The faces in the window press as one, glass bending to a new curve. The outermost row smiles with mouths that aren't mouths. Maya's fingers twitch at her sides, ready for a thing hands can't do. It's closing what it opened. That means it's about to open something else. What? The floor. The seam answers like it heard its name and is proud. A white thread appears between 2 boards, thin as a hair, straight as a taut string. It runs from hearth toward the center in a quiet that steals every other sound and holds them behind its back. Splinters lift one by one along the line, stand up like fresh grass, then break and skitter across the boards in a faint rain. Cold breath rises from the thin opening. It smells like earth and old sweetness and the private air under old houses. It's the smell of places that collect what people drop through floorboards and never return it. The copy takes a small step in the general direction of my mistake, the old leader impulse to help. It smiles with my mouth, shallow and satisfied. The smile you make when you finally place a face in a crowd and wish you hadn't. It opens its lips to practice a word it expects me to say. Together. Ethan breathes. Together, the copy echoes, a shade ahead, pleased to be part of the plan. Not yet. The crack lengthens, patient and efficient, a seam taking its true line. The boards on either side heave by the thickness of a thumbnail and stay there, the gap no bigger than the width of 2 fingers, and still enough to let the cold air pour through. The knocking returns from below, not on wood this time, on whatever waits under the wood. It is softer. It is many. It sounds like palms testing, finding where to push. The faces at the window press, as if urged by a hand we can't see. The broken glass bows anyway. Fragments shift in their frame like a jaw full of loose teeth. The fog beyond stays the same, indifferent. Shadow finds the last inch below our knees and holds there, a cuff. My calves buzz with too many messages, hot and cold, fast and slow, a choir all out of time on purpose. I lock my legs and unlock my jaw. Name 5 ugly things, I blurt, because the only weapon left is the list of ordinary. Wet carpet. Public bathroom mirrors. Mildew and grout. The color of hospital curtains. The smell under a sink. Maya breathes a short laugh that refuses to be joy. Keep going. The noise of a vending machine stealing your money. The way a gas station mop leaves the floor worse. The taste of water in a gym fountain. Coin-operated laundry. The light in this room. The house wants our lists for its collection. It wants all the small human rituals that make days link to days. It will use them like nails. The crack speaks again, a low, satisfied syllable, and splits a breath wider. Something below shifts closer. Not a single thing. Several. A cluster of small pressures testing in unison. The wood bows in a shallow saddle and holds. Rachel swallows and winces. It's in the chest now. It wants the throat. Keep your name, Rachel. Again. Rachel. The faces outside work her name without sound. Inside, her voice stays hers. For now, that counts as a win. Ethan grips the chair and looks at me like he wants permission to do the stupid, brave thing that might also be the last thing. I give him the only truth I have left. Not yet. How will we know? We'll know. The copy tilts its head. We'll know. I stare at it until my eyes burn. It doesn't look away. It doesn't blink. It is a version of me whose patience is not a virtue, but a resource. It waits like a fisherman. The seam under the ledger darkens a shade that isn't shadow and isn't stain. The breath from the gap cools my ankles, and then my shins, and then the air in my mouth. The next sound from below is not a knock. It is the soft slide of skin against wood, the sound of a palm committed to an edge. A second palm follows, a third. The pressure lifts the boards by another fraction and sets them back very gently, like someone learning the weight of a door before lifting it off its hinges. The cabin holds still and smiles with all its faces. The crack prepares its next word. When it speaks, it will be splinters. The crack speaks in splinters. A tooth of wood lifts, then another, a row of pale fangs chewing upward through the seam. The boards bow with care, not violence. Nails whine. The sound slices the air in slow, cruel strokes. Cold breath pours out of the line, a cellar exhale rich with earth and the faint sweetness of something that used to be fruit. A fingertip slips through. Not a whole finger yet, just the soft, blunt tip, blind and testing. It feels the air like a creature coming up for the first time and deciding it will take the world in small pieces. The rest follows. The nail cloudy and new, the pad pale and wax shiny. It flexes. The joint appears under the skin as if it remembered how to exist. Another fingertip joins it. They explore opposite edges of the slit, polite, in rhythm. A third and fourth arrive and set a measured grip. The floor gives a fraction as if to greet them. Ethan's breath goes short. He raises the chair and lowers it again, as if even panic respects the rules of timing here. His eyes dart to the window, then to the door, then down. A loop that tightens and tightens. Maya shifts into a posture that adds no weight to what is lifting. Her words are quiet and precise, built like a piton hammered into rock. This is not a house. It's a nest. I hate that. It knows how to keep. It knows how to feed. What is it feeding? Us to us. The fingers push. Skin that isn't skin, ripples and firms. A palm forms behind them and presses the edge of the board like someone testing a countertop. The gaps widen by 2-finger widths. Another hand slips through and joins the first, mirroring the grip. The boards rise by the thickness of a coin and lay back down, a breath from below. The seam becomes a shallow rectangle. The rectangle learns to open, cold pools around our shins. The smell of the air changes and changes again. Wet bark, old rope, something sugar sour and stored too long with the lid on. Dust floats over the hole and doesn't know which way to fall. I keep my mouth shut around a word that would give the copy more to work with. It stands in bad light, like a version of me set for display, and watches the new hands with bright, empty focus. Its eyes hold mine, and don't reflect me at all. A wrist emerges, too smooth, too clean. The tendons are there and not there. The texture reminds me of candle drips, smoothed with a thumb. It flexes as if the movement were a thought the room had. Then the forearm, pallid and almost translucent around a shape that hints at bone. Then the slope of a shoulder, the suggestion of a collarbone pressed in the wrong place and moving to correct itself. The first face rises into view. At first it is a lump with an angle. Then a brow swells, a cheek decides, a mouth draws itself as a faint line, untroubled by muscle or blood. The eyes are hollows until the room fills them with shine. The shine is wrong. The shine holds nothing. It looks at me and fails to focus, like a camera swinging through too many distances. Then it turns to Rachel. The mouth learns her line. The nose chooses her length. The cheek takes her subtle hollow. It is careful, a mean care. It pulls detail from her face the way pickpockets pull rings from fingers. A gentle lift, a practiced pride. Rachel clamps her lips together. The gray stain under her skin surges toward the notch at her throat and stops as if bone gives it a rule. She breathes through the nose, controlled, steady, a metronome she forces herself to keep. Her hand comes up to cover the pulse there and doesn't, because touching feels like a door. It's in me, she whispers. It's learning how to wear my breath. Keep your name. Rachel. Again. Rachel. The gap widens in a slow, polite tear. A second head rises, cheeks assembling, mouth tugging into a grin that belongs to Ethan before it belongs to anything else. It finds his angle, the tiredness at the corners, the lifted brow that sells the joke he shouldn't make. It holds those details like a prize. Don't look at it, Rachel says. I'm not. You are. He drags his eyes away and stares at the ledger as if wood that counts could be shamed. The newest notch gleams wet, as if the sound of coming up here cut it. He reaches for the board. His fingers skid on the surface with a tiny scream of nail on old polish. He leaves scratches that look old, as if they were waiting for his hand to write them. The faces at the window press in rows, the glassless frame bending inward like a mouth practicing a smile. Behind where the pane used to be, there is not the forest. There is more wall, its grain running at a different angle, endless layers of wood nesting inside wood. A seam opens beyond it, a window beyond a window, showing only another layer, waiting its turn. Ethan lifts the chair with a jerk and slams its leg into the new wall. The impact thuds dull, stolen by the grain. He hits again and again. The wood yields by a breath and restores itself, polite as a host correcting a cushion. He steps back, panting. The room keeps him on his feet. The chair lands upright at his side, an obedient dog. Please. The door lifts its latch and sets it back with careful manners. The air that breathes from the gap is basement cold. It smells like 1,000 pockets emptied into the same drawer. Below, the boards give with little pops in a neat sequence, like knuckles cracking around a table to mark agreement. Nails walk themselves loose in order. The rectangle becomes a shallow pit, then deeper. Hands find the frame and spread fingers in tidy spacing, as if someone were setting the place cards at a dinner. The first full body wriggles up and out, knees soft, as if they were thought and not joint. It stands and sways once, then stops swaying by deciding stillness exists. Its face finishes being Rachel, the details settling like a mask sealed with warm breath. It smiles. The smile is almost kind. Almost. Rachel's gray mark pulses, a second beat beside her own. She does not step back. The tide under her skin moves at the collarbone and recedes, as if the thing in the pit and the thing in her chest are keeping each other's time. Maya is looking at the duplicate and not looking, counting small ways it fails to match. She speaks so flat, the room has to lean to hear. Not a reflection, a making. How do we break it? Deny it pieces. What pieces? Pattern, gaze, rhythm, name. The second duplicate pulls free and stands with Ethan's grin stuck on like a sticker. It locates the chair and makes 2 quick tapping motions on the back with an invisible coin. No sound. The timing is exact. The room keeps the sound for itself. Liam and Sarah rise. The movement has weight and grace like someone stretching in a chapel. Their smiles bloom wider to accommodate the effort and then return to a reserved pleasantness. They step to the corners of the opening like bookends. Their eyes take in the newborns with something like pride, something like relief. Welcome, the room says in their posture. They raise their hands and the duplicates raise theirs, the palms a shade too smooth, the fingers too evenly spaced. Then the imperfections rush in, the small asymmetries that sell us to ourselves. A crooked nail, the little callus from a guitar string, the wrinkle forming at the knuckle from a winter of cold. The house is a careful thief. It loves detail. I step between the Rachel copy and Rachel, because that is the part of me that stays true even when everything else is wrong. The other me is already in the space, my height and shoulders, a living shadow that anticipates my block and sells it better. Move, I say to my own face. Move. It wears patience as if the room fitted it for a suit. The hole widens by another board's width, clean, exact, like a mouth practicing a vowel. From the deeper dark, more shapes climb, shoulders and backs, pale heads that haven't chosen the slope of their skulls, mouths that open and close until a lip decides which way to be full. A Maya tries on Maya and keeps failing, jaw too firm, eyes too simple, mouth almost brave and not. The room is learning her and enjoying the work. At the window, the faces crowd 3 deep, making a moving pattern of smiles and almost smiles. Behind them, only wood. The fog is a memory someone forgot to carry through. Ethan stares at the frame like a man trying to set his own bones. We're in a stomach. It's not a stomach, Maya says. It's a hive. Hives take honey. Stop being sweet. He laughs once, a wrecked sound, and catches it before the room can file it. The first Rachel copy takes a step toward the real one, a small, soft move that a person would make in a doorway. The gray beneath Rachel's skin rises, pauses, goes down. It's the sea breath at the edge of a flat day. They are meeting in the middle without touching. Back up, I say. Not yet. Look at me. She does. It pulls her away by the shortest thread possible. The copy stops a foot short, as if the geometry there breaks the map it was given. Behind us, the Ethan copy brightens like it found a light it knows how to be. It looks at me, then at the door, then back. It is waiting for me to be the person I always am, so it can be that person first. The other me steps closer. The eyes still hold nothing. The mouth opens the way mine does when I'm about to give orders, and pretend they are requests. The room's patience leans in. Together. I keep the word in my mouth. It burns my tongue like a coin fresh from a flame. I don't spend it. The copy closes its lips without getting what it wants. It is learning hunger. Liam and Sarah extend their hands to the new arrivals like officiants. The duplicates mirror them, palms up, palms down, fingers together. The pictures are almost perfect. The almost is the horror. Their smiles tighten or soften in a range that suggests emotion and contains only skill. Don't name them, Maya says without looking at me. What do I call them then? Not ours. The door lifts its latch again and again, a nervous tick. The antlers clack softly, bone on nail. The beam above us hums. The ledger board seems to lean a fraction, eager to count. Boards on the far side of the opening groan and come free in a run, a zipper opened by a firm hand. The pit becomes a square. The square deepens by inches. More bodies rise, waxy and willing, faces resolving as they find their target. Mine again, nearly right. Maya again almost. Another Rachel, more precise. Mouth too generous by a hair, eyes too bright. Smash it, Ethan says, pointing at nothing, everything, the whole. Smash the counting. Do it, I say. He throws himself at the ledger again. It refuses to leave the wall. He claws a notch with his thumbnail, and the wood accepts it into the pattern like it knew his nail would arrive. He staggers back, hand bleeding in a thin line. The drip lands on the floor and is absorbed into the grain without a stain, as if the room drank him and didn't even taste. He looks at his finger. It took that. Keep it from taking more. How? Stay ugly. He barks a laugh that hurts to hear, and then looks sorry for giving the house a new sound to file. The window frame bows again. The faces press. The fog beyond is gone, even as idea. Only wood remains, layer after layer, an infinite hallway of cabin, folding back into itself. The view is a lie, drawn by a thoughtful hand. I feel the floor choose us. The boards flex under our boots in small, careful ways that make us stand where it wants. My calves throb where shadow holds them. The cold at my shins lifts into my knees and stops, waiting for the next permission. The Rachel copy takes another step, so slight it could be a sway. Rachel steadies herself with a breath she doesn't let the room count. The gray in her chest retreats a half inch. The copy's chest rises to match the retreat, like a mirror you didn't want sneaking in to find your reflection anyway. Eyes on me, I say again, and the copy says it too, a heartbeat ahead, making a game of it. Maya's mouth twists into something like a smile, and isn't. It will win if you move first. I'm standing. You are. Her face holds a thought she won't let the room hear. She looks at the beam. The carved lines hold still for her out of fear or respect. The square in the floor gives up 2 more bodies and then stills, a pause between breaths. The new ones blink at the air, find who they're for, and begin to wear that person. The mouth of the opening glistens with a thin, wet sheen that is not water and not sap. The boards that frame it are polished by touch that has never included sweat. Liam and Sarah look at me directly for the first time since they sat and smiled by the dead hearth. Their faces are lit from within by nothing. The edges of their teeth show a fraction too long and then hide. They raise their hands in the same small blessing. The air tightens, ready to hold the closing sentence. At the window, 3 rows of faces make the same small private smile. At the door, the latch lifts and lowers, patient as a ritual. Above, the beam waits with its symbols set like teeth. Below, the square waits with its hands on the lip. We are surrounded, faces in the frame where the world should be, copies climbing smooth as water. Liam and Sarah set as leaders of a ceremony we never agreed to attend. The nest has opened. It is ready to shut with us inside its pattern. The room leans in, listening for the last thing we will offer before it closes its mouth. The room leans toward us like a head, waiting to hear the last thing. The square in the floor glistens. Hands rest there with patient weight. The faces at the window hold their almost smiles. Liam and Sarah lift their palms as if blessing bread. I don't have a plan that isn't a lie. I have breath and a body, and people who keep looking at me like it matters where I point those things. Now. The copy opens its mouth to take the word out ahead of me. It mouths it without sound and looks pleased it guessed right. I don't give it the rest. Together. It tries to steal that too. I swallow the second half of the sentence and leave it to choke on the ghost. I move first because I am built wrong for anything else. I go at the door at a slant, forcing the house to pick a path. The boards try to carry my feet into a neat cadence, and I stumble on purpose. I make myself ugly. I make myself hard to count. Ethan flanks me with the chair up like a battering ram. Rachel holds tight to the back of a spare chair with one hand and keeps the other on the notch at her throat, as if she can pin breath in place. Maya moves the way a person moves through a crowd when they refuse to surrender their shape. The door lifts its latch. The gap doesn't widen. The wood is warmer than the air, like a body at fever. The antlers tilt as if to listen. I hit the edge of the door hard with my shoulder, low, the way a hinge hates. The wood accepts me and makes a soft grunt of hospitality. The edge of it bends in like bark pressed by a thumb. It springs back, and I feel it do a small, satisfied thing under my skin. Harder. Ethan drives the chair leg at the seam next to the latch. The leg sinks a breath into grain and stops, held the way a hand is held by a stronger hand. He wrenches the chair back. The leg comes away with a long, reluctant sound. The door lifts its latch as if to say please. We push as one. The gap opens enough to make hope into a joke. Beyond is not the forest. It is more cabin. A hallway of wood extends, lit by the same light without any place for light to come from. Beams with the same carved angles repeat and repeat, shrinking to a vanishing point that never vanishes. The floor is the same boards. The walls hold the same knots and the same scuffs, mirrored so perfectly, the scuffs repeat at the same interval, as if the wood itself has been copied. Air moves in there, but it doesn't change temperature. It smells like the room smells, like the inside of a throat that goes on for miles. Ethan chokes out laughter that hurts to hear. He leans into the door with me until my shoulder burns. Push. We push. The hallway bends with us. It doesn't give way. It elongates, like a strip of rubber stretched by polite hands. I feel my muscles work, and the world uses my work to draw itself longer. Shadows coil up from the threshold and climb our shins, clutching. The square in the floor sloshes a wave of hands forward without hurry. The first of the new bodies rises to its knees. It looks at the hallway the way a person looks at water they don't need to drink. Rachel's mouth tightens. The gray under her skin shivers and climbs an inch. She keeps her eyes on me to deny it. Keep going. We surge, and the door shows us the same inch of space again and again, replacing it with itself. The handle trembles in small, polite apologies. The antlers knock bone to nail in a light rhythm, like clapping in a church. Maya angles off and hits the jamb high. Her palm slides. She hooks her fingers under the trim and pulls as if she is ripping off a bandage from a god. The wood lifts a hair and adheres again, leaving a line of pale where the skin doesn't want to be seen. The floor breathes and our feet sink a fraction and rise. The square behind us widens by another board. Hands rise, then arms, then shoulders. A dozen bodies now, small variations of us and not us. The Rachel copy steps with that soft domestic approach you can't mistake. The one you use when asking a friend if they want tea, because the answer will always be yes. Back, I say to it. It tilts its head the way I tilt mine when I pretend I have time to be patient. It finds the angle and keeps it and steps again. Back. It doesn't have to obey. It is measuring us. It is finding how close even people who won't give an inch allow other bodies. Ethan's shoulder slips. He yells and drives himself back into the wood with a noise that sounds more like falling than like pushing. Move. The copy beams. It opens its mouth and gives him his own voice back, delighted with the close fit. Move. Maya drops from the jam and angles for the hallway. She puts a foot into it. The floor beneath looks like the floor in here, looks solid, holds for the first small weight, and then lengthens under her like taffy when she shifts forward. She pulls back. The hallway pulls back with her. It isn't passage. It's portrait. We retreat a step because retreat is still a kind of motion, and the room wants to count it. The hallway shortens, happy to pretend it was never longer. The gap shrinks to the original mouth. The latch settles with satisfaction. We have made an effort. The room will keep it. The pit opens bigger, a patient yawn. Hands close around the lip in tidy rows. The first Ethan copy finds its feet and straightens and flicks an imaginary coin against the back of a chair, with no sound, and looks around at us, like he's about to say something charming about a blender. Another Rachel rises, a degree better in the eyes. Amaya steps halfway out, jaw set in a way that doesn't know why, and then sets properly as she finds her model. Ethan looks at me, and it is the same look he had when the raft spun, and he didn't see the rock, and I pulled him by the collar. Terror and trust and profanity. He grips the chair harder. He has a moment of human pettiness, and I love him for it. I hate this wood. Stay with me. You're with me. He takes a step back to brace, heel near the lip. Hands find his ankle from below with that polite curiosity. The grip is colder than skin and patient as a nurse. He jerks his leg and the hands hold, not strong enough to hurt, strong enough to teach him what holding is going to mean. He kicks. A palm bends wrong and corrects without fuss. More hands arrive, 2, 3, as if called by a bell that only they heard. He swings the chair down to smash fingers, and the chair leg sticks in that gentle, ruthless way that wood here does. He pulls. The furniture lets him have it back in slow motion, like a tongue releasing candy. He laughs once, a small, mad thing. Not funny. I know. The Rachel copy is suddenly within arm's reach. It doesn't touch Rachel. It arranges itself to be touched. It keeps the angle of her head and the tension around her eyes, like a well-trained mimic, awaiting cues. The gray moves under her skin like a tide, pulled by a moon, that is a face on a stranger. Look at me, I say, because I can't let her give even one glance to the theft. She does. It hurts to see her force that much attention through a body being used. On 3, Ethan says, because numbers are the last religion. We try again. 1. The floor picks up the count like a choir and taps once under our boots. 2. Tap. 3. Tap. We hit the door on the beat the house set us, because that is what bodies do when a rhythm is made for them. The door opens into hallway again, generous by an inch. The hallway stretches with our hope, and then keeps stretching without it. The copies rise behind us with the timing of a tide. Maya goes at the ledger this time. Her nails hook under the board and haul. The wood yields enough to let her think she made it, then sticks again with a sigh. She scrapes at the newest tally mark with a knuckle bone dry. The mark spreads wet like sap, and then dries in an instant, as if her attention fed it. Enough. She turns and kicks the nearest duplicate. The Maya copy takes the strike where a human knee would complain, and does not complain. It adjusts its weight and keeps coming, quiet, willing, focused on the shape it is learning. Rachel's breath shifts. A small sound leaves her that is not surrender. The gray moves up her throat to the jaw. She closes her teeth on the word that wants to leave her and keeps it. She says her name into herself, like she has been taught. Rachel. The Rachel copy says it into the room with a sweetness that is not voice. The word tastes wrong in the air. Hands clutch Ethan's calf in a polite ring. He looks down, and he shouldn't, but that's what a body does when it's grabbed. The gap below opens by another finger width. Knuckles blossom pale. Palms flatten like flowers as they spread to distribute the load. He swings the chair. The leg hits wrists and rebounds. More hands rise. He hits again and again, frantic now, and each strike produces the same awful gentleness of refusal. Alex. I've got you. Don't lie. I've got you. The house takes the exchange and sets it in its collection. It likes pairs. It likes promises. Its copies have learned to speak them too. The Ethan copy reaches without touching. It lifts its hands palms up as if to accept a heavy box. The hands below accept Ethan's weight. His knee buckles. He fights it and makes a noise that takes the top off his voice. He finds my wrist, and I set myself, and the floor under me accepts both of us. Soft, loving, treacherous. The grip on his leg tightens. Helpful, helpful, helpful. Dragging like a blanket. He grunts and laughs and grunts again. Pull. I pull. The copies below learn the rhythm of strain and answer, with a practiced pull that isn't strong, it is endless. They do not need muscle. They have time. The wood under us sinks a fraction. He slides an inch and screams, not a leader sound, a boy sound, and the scream comes back at us from the walls, in his own timing, a half-second behind, a room delighted to be a chorus. Help. Here. Help. Here. The echoes stack. The screams return, softer and small, then louder than the original, then flat and bored. The walls throw them back until none of us can remember which was the first and which was the copy. Rachel bites her lip, and the Rachel copy wears the mark of that bite with pride. Ethan's hand slips. His fingers claw my wrist, and miss, and claw again, and find. The palm below his boot turns, and pulls with such patience my arms burn with the insult. Maya grabs his jacket, and the jacket slides in her grip, as if the fabric decided to be wood for a second. He slides another inch. Don't let me go. I won't. You can. I won't. He loses one boot. It vanishes down between boards, as if the gap took it as a tip. He laughs once. Awful. Keep the other. Okay. The next pull takes the ankle to the lip, then the calf, then the knee. Hands multiply and stack like ants carrying something that should be too heavy. He kicks with the free leg, and a hand bends like rope and holds him anyway. He swings the chair in his last act of pettiness and hits the door. The door lifts its latch to be courteous. I lean back, and we both lean back, and the room leans forward and wins. He drops to his waist. The copies below accept him like he belongs to gravity they invented. He slams the chair down hard, and it catches in the hole, and jam sticks, and we pull one last time as a team, and 3 hands below slide off, and 3 more replace them, and the motion doesn't change. He looks up at me with the same look he had in the raft, and the same look he had at the hospital, and the same look he had every time I promised anything. And then, the hands put their palms flat on his ribs, and he goes down as if the earth decided to eat him neatly. His scream runs around the room and around again, and comes back thinner and young, and the house keeps it and plays it whenever the walls feel like being music. Rachel sags against the chair back. The gray reaches her jaw and slides along the line of her cheek, and her pupils dilate, like she has heard a piece of music she never wanted and can't stop listening to. She holds my face in her focus, and I can feel her choosing each ankle, each breath, each inch of spine on purpose. The Rachel copy moves in time with choices not yet made. "Don't look at me," she says. "I'm here. Don't." Okay. She turns toward the hearth. She takes one step. The air in the room changes. It thickens like honey. The gray rises to her eyes. Her mouth softens like sleep. Her hand lowers from her throat. The fingers loosen. Her shoulders ease as if the weight that needed setting down has finally set. She sits in the chair Liam left, as if she had always been on her way to it. The smile that catches her mouth is small and wrong, and very gentle. Home. The word is careful. It has no breath of hers in it. The Rachel copy mirrors the small smile, and then becomes less necessary. It joins the others in the loose ring around the opening, and waits without impatience for whatever comes next. Maya makes a sound that isn't sobbing. It's anger with the wrong body to carry it. She swings at the nearest duplicate with a flare of red that is real and alive in a room that hates anything that isn't repeated. Her nails rake skin that isn't skin and leave no mark. She kicks knee, hip, shoulder, fast and ugly, a street fight under a church. The duplicates adjust and receive and hold. 2 Maya faces come from either side and meet her with a kind of proud focus, almost tender. They take her wrists, they take her ankles, they take her waist. She twists like a cat and gets free of 3 hands. The 4th waits for where she will be and ends it. "Keep your name," she says with no breath, a last teacher's command. "Alex, keep it." I'm keeping it. The duplicates walk her toward the edge where the wall and floor meet in the back corner. That line deepens and darkens until it is more choice than structure. She fights the way people fight when they cannot make their bodies bigger by will. She goes into the shadow like a swimmer diving into a cold lake, clean, head first, refusing to let the water see fear. The seam accepts her like a host accepts a guest. The shadow closes with a hush. We are 2 now. Me. And the version of me the room made, because I kept living in one place long enough for it to learn how. The faces at the window go quiet. The hands around the lip rest in neat rows. The hallway beyond the door waits with infinite polite interest. The beam holds its small angles. The ledger holds its wet mark and has room for more. The copy steps up and the room clears the floor under us without moving. My legs tremble in the small, honest way of legs that have had a lot asked of them. It has my height. It has the curve at the base of the throat where sweat gathers in heat. It has the way my mouth wants to lift at one corner when I'm about to lie about how bad it is. It has the habit of checking the corners of the room, like exits are something you can memorize and use later. It stops half an arm's length away and brings its hand up and lowers it and brings it up again, testing the choreography of contact. Behind its shoulder, Liam and Sarah stand with their small, bright smiles like stage lights. They watch as if this is the part of the performance they came for. The others hold, ringed around the hole, patient as clergy. I don't have a word that won't get borrowed. The copy does. It opens its mouth and shapes my own voice with a tenderness I hate. Come home. The syllables decide they are mine, and also that they have never belonged to anyone. The face holds nothing and everything. The mouth opens again. The breath that leaves it smells like the room. I think of the hikes we started and finished. I think of the gas station radio. I think of my neighbor's blender. I think of toast I don't like and still eat. I think of light that belongs to outside. I think of rooms where doors open to hallways and not to wood. None of those thoughts are magic. None of them are doors. The floor lifts a fraction to offer me its hand. The shadows around my calves tighten, like a cuff politely requesting ankles. The door lifts its latch and sets it gently down, like a mother showing a child how to close quietly. The faces at the window do not move. They don't have to. They are already where they were meant to be. Alex. The copy's voice is a mirror with heat removed. The word lands in me like a stone dropped into cold water. The ripples are mine. I could step back. There is nowhere to go. I could strike. The room would store the shape of the motion and make it part of the dance. I could pray. The house knows all the prayers that keep people calm. I say my name once more, not for the room, for me. Alex. The copy smiles with my mouth as if I did something right. The house exhales. Not a gust, a closing flinch. The sound in the floor stops. The air stops. The faces in the frame settle. Finished. The hallway beyond the door is a painting hung perfectly level. The shadow in the corner flattens like a blanket smoothed by a hand. Dust drifts down in flat sheets and lies where it lands. Silence fills the room like water poured until it reaches the rim. The ledger scratches itself with a small wet stroke. A new notch darkens. The firebox breathes in and out once. A curl of ash lifts and turns and dies mid-air. The copy's hand closes the last inch between us, gentle. The cabin is patient. The cabin is pleased. The cabin waits for the sound we will not make. The stillness is so complete I can hear the breath I do not take. Then, there isn't even that.